Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We got a great show planned for you about The Lady in the Lake. Joshua Cutchin and movie director Ryan Grulich are here. We're going to hang out with them and we're going to have a good time. I know you guys are going to love it too. Hey, before we bring them in, let us say hello to everybody in our chat room so far. Who do we got? I'm pretty sure it's Race Fan in the gold medal position, SJ with a silver, Tim Mothman and his goatee in the bronze medal. All right, we got that done. Let's say hello to everybody in our chat room so far. Chris Laker, how you doing? Good to have you here. Hi, Kitty Cattywhack, Little Cam on YouTube. I'm so used to saying Twitch, buddy. I'm glad you're on the YouTube side. Robert Lamoth, Frankie B, Michael Morris, our attorney at large. Deidre, the hippie, how you doing? Lisa Smith is here. Lisa Smith will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Hi there, Brown Dwarf. Joanne in the studio. Little Timmy James, how you doing, buddy? Good to have you here. Mel WD40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want rigidness. Josh told me coming into this show, absolutely no rigidness, Dave. None. So I said, Mel, we need extra lube tonight. So he lubed us up. We're doing good. We're really good right now. Lee the Bee, how you doing? And just another guy named Harry. What's up? Richard Minnick, thank you for coming on in. Hi there, Bill Sardellis. And Cosmic Joe, thank you for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much. Fapster is here. How you doing? Jeremy Jones, Road Flare, Operation Shutdown. Noble Patrick, how you doing? Vanessa is here. Vanessa will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Continuing on here, Millennium, my man, how you doing? Mr. Cowley, how you doing, buddy? Good to have you here. And Panda on Fire is here. Panda on Fire will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio as well. Bar Madison, what's up? Queen Peachy Keen, thank you for coming on in. Hi there, Nina Williams and S. Vermette, the awesome cat chaser. Good to see you. Mark Sanchez and his collection of Hawaiian shirts. Good to have you here. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Hi there, Jay Truthseeker. How you doing? Asteroid. Brian W. Good to have you both here. Al Garay over on Twitch swam 250 laps around the lake looking for the mysterious lady. He's warmed up for tonight's show. Absolutely. Debbie Nickerson, thank you for coming on in. As we continue on with our roll call, there's JMJ12. Good to have you here. And let's see, scrolling on down. 88 miles per hour over on X. How you doing? Thanks for joining us tonight. Hillbilly Herb, what's happening? Phil the Stalker, what's going on? The gorgeous and talented cryptid huntress, Jessica Jones. We love you around here. We do. We miss you too. Walter Kochabinski, nice to see you. As we continue on with our roll call here. Hi there, Carol Mario. Good to have you here. Contrary One, thanks for coming on in. Dave Tiger Williams, he'll drop the gloves for you every single time. Scott Blight, good to have you here. Digger Dog, good to see you as well. Scrolling on down, we got Marty Burback, who still hasn't committed to Vegas yet. We're waiting on that one. We want you there, Marty. Sherry Dion, is it Diane or Dion? It's Diane. It's confirmed. It's Diane. Sherry Diane Hernandez, how you doing? I can't read the small print anymore. D. Buchek, how you doing? Thank you for coming on in. Philip Blair, good to see you, and thank you for that awesome super chat. Really appreciate the love, my friend. Skip to Malou, good morning to you, the stunning Amber Dawn Glover. Tracy Johnson, what's happening? Scott Fricks, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for coming on in. Ginger Turtle, good to see you. Jordan Ashley Pettit, it's always a pleasure to have you here. And let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Lady in the Lake is the topic. Joshua Cutchin, Ryan Grulich are our guests tonight. We're going to have some fun. We are in roll call on our YouTube channel right now. Hi there, Amanda Joe Chapman. Nice to see you. Mike Rivers, thanks for coming on in. And Jimmy J. Jordan Gonzalez, nice to see you. We're caught up. Oh, Phineas over on X. Good to have you here. Hi, SG Nab Spotter. Remember, the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show for you tonight. It's a land of mystery. Ryan Grulich and Joshua Cutchin are here to talk about Lady of the Lake. We're going to get into that. A busy hour number 3 as well. Swamp Dweller has a spooky story. The abbreviated UFO report with little Timmy James. It's Dave 101 night. And we will also get to the weird news of the week. I'm telling you, this is one of those stories that I love. The reason why is it's not popular. Everybody knows about it. A lot of people know about it, but it's one of those little mysteries that's a hidden gem. It's a hidden gem that absolutely captivates me. And the other thing that I know about this field is when author and researcher Joshua Cutchin puts his name on something, you know it's going to be good. I can see him in his video screen laughing right now because he's like, shut up, Dave. Just shut the hell up. But I'm not going to do that. No, this is my show. I can compliment somebody if I want to. I really can. You know, I don't need permission. I really don't. But I love Joshua's work. He has been a friend of this show for probably 6-7 years now. And he is always, in my opinion, one of the best when it comes to really doing his due diligence on the work. Now, new to this show is Ryan Grulich. And he is a writer, director, producer. He's the co-owner of media and press group Creepy Kingdom, based in Los Angeles. And you know what? He's been in the entertainment industry for a lot of time. He also loves a good spooky story. So we're going to bring them in right now. Joshua Cutchin, Ryan Grulich, how you guys doing? And thank you for bringing Lady of the Lake to our attention. Josh, it's all on you, man. This is your fault.
Well, I mean, I've just got to say, you know how to pep up someone on the East Coast at midnight. So I'm wide awake now. So thank you for that. And thank you for the kind words, too. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I know when Ryan and I were talking about doing press for Lady of the Lake, this was at the top of the list. So I really am appreciative that you're giving us the opportunity to share this with everyone.
No, man, it is going to be absolutely great tonight. And Ryan, I want to welcome you to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. You know, it's tough to get in this field, because everybody has a story, everybody has, an idea. You're probably getting pitched at least, 50 to 100 times a week. Oh, you got to do this. I'm not going to tell you about it until you say yes. All that kind of stuff. I know that from working in a newsroom, completely different, maligned, I know, but you got to cover this story, but I'm not going to tell you about it until you bring the camera down or something along those lines. But these stories that you're focusing on, these weird and strange mysteries, how fun is that for you to focus on these stories, man?
This story in particular is, I think you touched on it earlier. It's kind of like this odd little gym, and it is really fascinating and was a lot of fun to kind of explore. And it's still fun to explore and talk about. I feel like it's still kind of ongoing.
Well, let's get an introduction on both of you guys for our audience here. Joshua, you've been writing about the weird and strange for a long time now, and I know your family is number one, but number two, this is your passion of the life is telling these stories. And one thing that I love about you, Josh, is you don't go for the same stories of the same locations like Roswell or wherever else that have been written about 1,001 times. You're always looking for something that's this hidden gem. Why do you focus on that?
Well, I think that the discourse needs another book on Roswell, like a submarine needs a screen door, right? I mean, it's been done to death. The waters have been so muddied by some of these really landmark cases. And I think it might have been UFO researcher Carla Turner who suggested that perhaps the key to all these mysteries might lie in the small details. So, for a while, that's sort of been my MO, is to look at the small details and look at the connective tissue. That's something that I'm really passionate about. Granted, my last nonfiction book was about death, which is no small subject. I really, there was this thing whenever my parents would chaperone marching band trips, whenever we would go out of state. And whenever like the group would say, okay, on Tuesday, we're going to go to Six Flags, my parents would be like, okay, we're going to take Josh and the rest of our family, and we're going to go to I remember, for example, one year we were in Arizona and we went to Jerome, which at the time was a ghost town. And that was so much more memorable for me. So I've always said that one good way to get Cutchins to not do something that you want them to do is to just say, everybody go right. And we're like, well, we'll go left. So that might play a bit of a role in this as well. I've been just sort of writing my tail off over the past coming up on 10 years now, which I can't really believe. And it was sometime around 2020 that this weirdo named Ryan started emailing me and and then inserting himself and his way into my life. And I always try to respond to all correspondence that I get. And he suggested that we call, we have a phone conversation. And, it was 2020 after all. So a lot of us were in our homes. And we started chatting with each other, and friendship was formed. And here we are 4 years later.
This is wonderful. And Ryan, being in that Hollywood landscape where you are in LA, Hollywood, that entire filming area, was it hard to get into this type of subject matter of weird, strange, maybe obtuse type topics? Or was this always kind of like your dream to tell these strange, could be true stories?
Well, the good news is for me that I don't live in Hollywood. My business is ran out of LA. I live in Orlando, Florida right now. I'm talking to you from Mickey Mouse's house. It's about 20 minutes from where I'm at, which I live here now almost a year. Previous to that, I lived in Seattle, Washington for many years. And so our business, Creepy Kingdom, is ran out of LA, and I would go back and forth, right? And so up there, there is less filmmaking going on in general, and it's more documentary or commercial driven. And so this story was I'm not going to say it was a logical jump, but it was definitely like a colloquial story that was right at hand. A lot of the stories that I had worked on in the past were more media driven, as you can see by like taking a look at Creepy Kingdom and some of the other projects, we've worked on, where we're making films about films or talking about film, and sort of that whole, coverage rubric, like you were kind of talking about earlier. But this story really jumped out at me, just due to knowing somebody that, lived out this way. And so the mystery sort of unfolded for me in real time, learning about the case and documenting it. So it was a pretty interesting jump into the genre, though. Yeah, for sure.
Were you always a believer, Ryan?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've never talked about it a whole lot, but I guess I'm an experiencer. So of some different sorts of, things in life. And so for me, the hauntings and the paranormal phenomena attached to this case weren't that big of a jump at all. No. And in fact, I saw pretty quickly that there was a lot more to them than even the story we were covering, because of the area that we were in.
Oh, now I got to ask, are you comfortable in sharing your story?
I don't talk about it a ton, but what I will say is that I've experienced sort of paranormal typical sighting, like an apparition, a full-bodied apparition, and I guess it was part of a haunting, and then previous to that, I've had some more personal experiences, like from when I was a kid, that have been kind of ongoing, that I don't really talk about much. But yeah, but I do have a belief that there are things going on that are bigger than us.
You got aliens, don't you? Be honest. You got some aliens. I got aliens, man. I got aliens. Thank goodness they haven't taken me in 10 months, but I got some aliens. So it's all good. We're friendly with aliens around here. Not these NHI things. We prefer aliens and UFOs around here.
And, well, or flying saucers. I mean, I'm trying to bring that back.
Oh yeah, I will be game with that. If you go into our Spaced Out Radio store, Joshua, I know you'll like this. We do have T-shirts right now that say "Friends don't let friends UAP."
Yes,
wow.
I've seen you talking about that. Yeah, I mean, there's just something so charming about flying saucers, regardless of how often they appear saucer-shaped. I just love that term.
So, more of an airships kind of guy.
Oh, look!
I like a good old pancake on my airship.
Mm-hmm. I love it, guys. I absolutely love it. As long as it's not UAP. I give everybody a hard time about that. But let's, we're going to get into the film at the bottom of the hour. I want to learn more about you guys for our audience. Joshua, you've covered a lot of subjects outside of Lady of the Lake. What really captivates you about this field? What's your favorite topic to cover?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's kind of funny. I grew up as probably a cryptid kid, right? And then I sort of Goldilocks my way into finding more interest in the UFO question. And I'd have to say it's probably the UFO subject nowadays, simply because it has become a clearinghouse for all of our mythologies. And there's a depth and a richness to the ways that whatever this other intelligence is that reaches out to touch us, the many manifold ways in which it sort of changes, and it adapts to culture and adapts to people's expectations, and honestly can become so personal. I really find myself gravitating towards that. Of course, I'd also be lying if I didn't say I didn't have a gigantic soft spot for the fairy folk mythologies as well, because they really do seem to be a largely forgotten aspect of the way that we used to interface with the world, and the way that they seem to speak to so many other paranormal topics as well. I'm not inclined to do the Giorgio Tsoukalos thing with fairies and be like, therefore fairies, but it's tempting quite often because so much of this stuff seems to speak to those older myths and legends that I really have resonated with. So yeah, if you have to put a if you have to hold my feet to the fire, I guess, and ask me which one, it's probably UFOs or fairies, but I'm not really sure how much I distinguish between those two nowadays anyway.
I'm all about right now Bigfoot and aliens. It's
Yeah.
the personal encounters that I'm trying to go back to with this show, because the amount of research, I'm not saying there's wrong research out there, but everybody and their dog hopping on the UAP bandwagon now.
Yeah.
I just don't find that interesting, because you don't know what sources to trust. You have so much going on that it unless you're doing this full time, you don't have a real opportunity to stay on top.
Well, and this is something that I struggle with. If you make the UFO into UAP, if you make the flying saucer reputable and respectable and studied in the halls of academia, does it cease to be the thing that it has been? I mean, I think that there's a certain amount of charm and whatnot to the way that the UFO used to be presented, at conferences in the basements of Ramada Inns and in old trade paperbacks and such. Like that to me is the UFO, and I feel like sometimes the UAP should have one of those strips that they used to put over toilets and motels that says "sanitized for your protection."
That's large, right?
That's something I really fear with the way that the current conversation is trending. That and I just fear that we're going to start losing the experiencer's testimony in seas of data and tables and charts and such, and that really to me is sort of antithetical to what the phenomenon's all about. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with sort of losing a bit of interest in that regard.
How about you, Ryan?
With regard to what compels me about all of this stuff?
First off, what is your favorite subject to cover in the high strangeness?
I probably have the most research into transcendental experiences, and time, time slips, time changing, timeline, occultism, this sort of stuff. So for me, those sorts of things have always been really fascinating, and things, the mythologies around stuff like that, like Indra's web, the many worlds theory, and how all of that stuff's kind of baked into the larger picture of a reality. But I want to make a meme now, Josh, of you with Sukalos's head saying "therefore fairies."
I have a mock-up JPEG that I used to use in a couple of presentations, so I'll have to pass that along for you to share.
You did it yourself?
Yeah, it's a really bad Photoshop job. It
would have to be. Yeah. So for me, those things are the most fascinating, and really, as I kind of have grown into the topic as a student, I don't publish much on it. I've always just read a lot, right, and talked to people, and had my own, kind of pursuit of it. But as I've grown, I would say it's more of a well-rounded, like Fordian approach that's interesting to me. So none of it is I'm not disinterested in any of it. And in fact, you could put any one of these things in front of me, whether it's, the crawlers or the Bigfoot or a sea monster or a UFO case or, the Mandela effect. And I would just run after it and then forget I was running. So I'm into all of it.
What's really catching your attention now, Ryan, in regards to subject matter?
Well, I'm biased, obviously, but I like the work Josh does, and I'm excited to see his next book. But I think that the previous work on the relationship between the afterlife and all of this was right up my alley, in this sort of intersection of the dead and the encounter experience, in different shapes it'll take and how those things could be potentially related. Just I've lost some people over the last couple of years, and I've had a few, kind of experiences with them that took a weird shape. And so, um, I think Ann Strieber, said it too, right? Like maybe this all has something to do with the dead, Um, and that's really kind of the thing that I've been on about lately. And the Lady of the Lake didn't help that. It just drove it deeper and deeper. But yeah.
Yeah, and to that extent, like I think that something that Ryan and I have talked off and on quite a bit about lately is how we're no longer interested in trying to get people to understand that this stuff is real or to capture something on tape. I mean, it's great if you can do that, right? But the stuff isn't always cooperative. I think we're both interested in sort of really interrogating what type of real it is, and like let's start looking for answers. As Jeffrey Kripal would say, we don't need any more pixels. We need pictures, So let's start to try to coalesce some of this stuff and figure out how to confront what I think we all realize is here. Like I don't know, you talk to your random person on the street and like it's here in some form or fashion. Like people are really open to these topics. So now is the time to say, okay, now that we've gotten over that initial hurdle, let's really take a look at what this could be and try to be intellectually honest about it.
Yeah. And not only that, but people are actually, I'm finding at least, more open to the conversation of it being something that isn't necessarily following like a linear siloed chain of thought for them. Like it doesn't have to be these zeta reticulans in nuts and bolts UFOs. Doesn't have to be that. They could appear as that. And then the fact that people are hip to the fact that it can appear as other things, right, is I think something that's really interesting to me about where we're at right now. So almost maybe I'm most interested in how this series of phenomena are being understood in a more holistic, less secular, Western, post-industrial like landscape mentally by people. So maybe I'm most interested right now in people's reactions to this stuff and how their perspective may be changing due to probably the influence of, a lot of the technology that we're seeing and the information overwhelm. It's probably shaping their mind a little bit. And maybe that distrust of the nature of reality is bleeding over into some of this other stuff and making it, more interesting for me to talk to normies about,
The old normies. Can't trust them. But the one thing that we do know is happening is real people, not just military people or military pilots, but real people are having extraordinary experiences, Josh, as we got about 2 minutes to go before the break.
I'm sorry, one more time. What the question?
Regular people are having extraordinary experiences they can't explain.
Yeah, it not only are regular people having these experiences, but they're like a birthright of being a human being, I think. I mean, like this is part of what you were meant to experience in your incarnation here on Earth, is this phenomenon. And again, the sea change that I've noticed at the level of just person on the street. I mean, a good example that I like to use is, 7 years ago, I never used to talk to people at my church about, what I'm into, because like, I have to explain, and then I'm kind of like pulling my punches with them. And I'm like, kind of, it's not exactly what you think. I'm like having to do a lot of explaining, having to do a lot of apologetics, both for the phenomenon and both for Christianity. Right. And now I'm at church events and people will come up to me and go, Josh, what do you think about Chris Bledsoe? And I'm like, where did this come from? Like the real change of the temperature in the room at the cultural level is really tangible. And I think people are finally getting hip to the fact that, yeah, these things happen and we have to deal with it and find a way to integrate it that makes the most sense for each of us on a personal level.
Yeah, I would say that the society is starting to open up more. It's not just tinfoil conspiracy theorists who live in the trailer park with their mom anymore, who work the nighttime shift and no dental plan. It's gone well beyond that entire thought that was in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And, you look at Randy Quaid's character in Independence Day. That's what most people thought an experiencer was, just the local weirdo that you could make fun of. And now people are feeling more and more comfortable in coming out and talking about this. And I think that's been one of the benefits of social media is it's allowed people to find their people. And on that note, I know I spoke too much there, but I am going to cut this off because we do have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Ryan Grulich and Joshua Cutchin here, Lady of the Lake. We're going to find out all about this incredible legend and documentary that these two gentlemen are bringing with us tonight. This is Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott, and this is why we own the night. We'll be right back, everybody. All right, just got to time everything out there. So Ryan and Josh, reminder for you, but Ryan, we are live on the radio, and we have to time everything out to our commercial breaks. So when we're on commercial break, radio can't hear us, but YouTube and podcast can.
Oh, you handle the commercial break so much more elegantly than some other people we've talked to lately. Right, Ryan?
Yes.
Yes.
Short answer. No worries at all.
The short diplomatic answer.
Sometimes concision is the best tool.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. I would make a comment about that, but I would sound really egotistical.
It'd be almost as egotistical as making a meme of yourself as Giorgio Tsoukalos.
But if it's a meme that's like, self.
No, that's like ultimate third person. That's what that is. That's like third person.
By the way, that is beautiful. A quick hello here to Mama Susan. Thanks for coming on in. And who else jumped in here that I saw? Well, who jumped in here? Magneticus, how you doing? And to Jennifer in Las Vegas, you're brand new to our chat room, and you're just talking about your Black Triangle story in 1995.
Yeah.
We're all experiencers in this chat room, so you'll feel really comfortable here with the really cool people that we have. And old Davey's seen a couple of Black Triangles too, so it's all good.
If the audience can hear me still, the people in the YouTube chat, Philip, it's good to see your name again. You sure do get around. I feel like every time I do one of these anywhere I am, Philip pops
You're
up.
a stalker.
So, yeah, he seems like a nice person. It's okay to have nice stalkers. It's when they're not the not fun stalkers are a different story, and there have been a few of those. But
yeah,
they're not fans of the fairy lore.
What was that?
They're not fans of the fairy lore.
No, I did receive some really strange mail one time that was just like printed sections from like a sermon with like parts of it circled. It was kind of, and there was the return address was like in a strip mall and like somewhere in Florida. It was really like a disquieting sort of piece of mail to get.
Not gonna say it wasn't me. It wasn't.
Yeah, I don't really know how they found me, but yeah, something to be aware of.
I like Asteroid here. I was taken away by Calgon. My dishes have never been the same.
Wow.
Oh, that's old school right there. That's old school. Oh. Yeah, man.
So you got my mail. Nice. I just saw that pop up in the chat. I mean, unless it was you, and in which case, thank you very much. A message received. No need to follow up.
A few months ago, I had a really, really bad bout of depression. And I'm very open about suffering from depression and anxiety. So it's nothing new to my audience. They already know this story. But I came out of that after about 10 days in the dark. I came out of that where I literally came on here. I had a couple people chirping me and all this kind of stuff. And I never block people unless I know they're bots or trolls, I never block people. And now it's kind of like I got 0 Fs to give now. 0. Like I just don't. I figured finally clicked in that I'm 51 years old and I'm allowed to not be a nice guy sometimes.
Well, life is too short, you know. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons I got off of Twitter back in the day, is because it's all fun and games until like the death threats over your criticism of disclosure start popping up, and you're like,
right?
What? Like get it. I'm sorry, but like you should not get that worked up over this. So it was like, okay, now's the time to bow out of this.
Yeah. You also have to be nice to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've never had death threats. I've had other stuff, like really bad false accusations,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whether it's racial or religious or other, and I just disassociate myself. Like, go away.
Yeah.
I live in the middle of nowhere, you know. I don't really care.
Yeah.
So I hear you. All right, we're coming back in 5 seconds. Mongo, how you doing? Thank you, Richard, Mel, Philip, and Joe for the super chats. Here we go. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Yes, I am wearing tinfoil underwear tonight. And you can too if you go to our Spaced Out Radio store. I'm teasing. We don't have tinfoil hats, but we do have underwear with my face on it, if that kind of gets you all worked up. That's up to you. Joshua Cutchin and Ryan Grulich are here. We are going to get to them momentarily, but first we want to remind everybody that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Lady of the Lake, that is what we are getting into with director and producer Ryan Grulich, as well as researcher Joshua Cutchin. This is a new documentary that is out, and they are the two people who are bringing this incredible story to the public at large. Josh, Ryan, welcome back.
Thank you.
That's a very nice thank you, by the way, Ryan. Very, very subtle, very pleasurable, rolled off the tongue nicely. Very good. Very good. All right, Josh, tell us the story. Who or what is Lady of the Lake?
Well, actually on the just coming up on the anniversary in a couple of days, on the winter solstice of 1937, Hallie Illingworth disappeared from the town of Port Angeles, Washington, and remained a missing person until in July of 1940. Some fishermen on Lake Crescent spotted something jutting up from the lake, and they went over and they discovered that it was a human hand reaching up from the surface of the water. And this turned out to be Hallie's remains. And it was quite a sensational story at the time. Even in the midst of World War II, it was sort of vying for headlines and really caught everyone's attention for a couple of different reasons, not the least of which was the fact that her body had, there are various terms, some of which Ryan remembers better than I do, but her body had turned to soap in this process of saponification, a soap-like substance, due to the confluence of conditions in Lake Crescent. The other thing that's remarkable about it is that despite being a notorious spot where people did disappear, I believe there are 83 people reported missing in Lake Crescent. Hallie's body was one of only, is it 2 or 3, Ryan?
Yeah, 3.
3. Only one of 3 bodies that have ever been recovered.
Known
bodies. And there's a long and storied history behind this particular location in regards to being a spot that doesn't give up its dead and is, infamously bottomless. So the investigation proceeded, which is something we probably shouldn't get too far into for spoiler reasons. But the important thing for the purposes of what we're talking about tonight is that this story of Hallie's demise really became part of the fabric of this town, and is a story that is very much retold amongst citizens of the town. And even people who are passing through end up hearing about this story. And that has manifested itself as sightings of this ghostly woman along the shores of the lake, and sometimes seen wearing white and crying. What I have really appreciated about the approach that Ryan has taken is that there is there are several ways that you could go about doing sort of what is essentially a true crime documentary, and a lot of those ways tend to sort of diminish the victim as sort of like a plot point, or as a something that motivates the story, and that's not at all what Ryan chose to do. But also the fact that the Lady of the Lake, such as it is a figure, is a deep archetype that really stretches back both universally and to great time depths all across the world. And when watching the documentary, and this becomes more apparent in the back half of it when things get exceptionally strange, but it does become apparent that, or at least to me, my takeaway is that there's something about tragedy, trauma, and real life, real interactions that seems to trigger this sort of archetypal layer of reality, in the sense that the story of Hallie's murder became larger than life, and really did seem to strike a nerve in something deep in the collective unconscious. And so to that end, you get about 3/4 to 2/3 of the way through the documentary, and you go, what am I watching exactly? Because it turns a lot of assumptions on its head. And although it is sort of a cliche to say this, you are left with more questions than answers. Some things that we in this sort of domain of the paranormal seem to widely accept, you end up questioning, such as, like, what are ghosts? What are they strictly the spirits of the dead, or is there something stranger and deeper and more universal and ancient going on there when you start to deal with these stories?
When you look at a story like this, I mean, every small town, every hidden little coven of people, like the town I live in, every small town has its secrets,
Mhm.
and I don't think those are explored enough.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't matter whether you're in Washington State or whether you're in Florida where you are, Ryan. There are
Mhm.
all these small little not abandoned towns, but maybe have a population of 300 or 2,000, that are holding on to these secrets, and nobody really talks about them if you're an outsider, because they don't want to embarrass their community and their fellow people in town, because it's a town where everybody seems to know everybody. you know what made this story pop out for you, Ryan?
Um, First of all, I agree with what you just said, that this story has a lot of atypical dimensions for a true crime story, but that's because true crime sloughs off a lot of details generally in an effort to tie things up neatly into a three-act structure and leave you after about 30 minutes feeling like justice was done or everything's okay, this sort of thing. The reality is always a lot different, right? So yeah, for me, the nature of Hallie's discovery, the mythic, component of her hand coming up out of the water like this, which is sort of physically anomalous as we talk about it in the film, right? Like normally a body would float, but her hand was sticking up out of the water as if she were tethered to something below, and she was not. So that sort of Lady of the Lake, I am like a student of, the Arthurian stuff and have read it, and I knew immediately that, like, wow, like that's really significant. Um, is what hooked me in deeper. My first introduction to it was about the content of her remains, the corpse wax or adipocere, which is just the fats turning into soap essentially. It does float. It is buoyant, which is probably why she was sticking up this way. But in the end, that was what everybody kind of learns about her. That she had turned to soap. And so, they set out to solving who this mystery soap woman was. And through a very cool confluence of detective work and basically mailer marketing, they figured out who she was in 1940s because they didn't have a lot of the tools that we had. So some of this story stuff really popped out at me in the beginning. And that was just as somebody reading and learning at home, and the deeper I went into it, the sort of architecture of all this weird stuff started to come out. And that was when it was like, okay, I'll make a film about this, because it really hit my need for, the weird stuff going on. And to that point, this story is one of a ton of stories in that area that are very strange. And I immediately sort of went to John Keel's window areas when looking at this sort of region and all of the things that were going on in it that people were reporting, with a great deal of them being attributed to this woman in white, the Lady of the Lake, Hallie Illingworth. And then all of the peripheral phenomena that were sort of attached started to unfold. And so we just kept chasing it because that's what was happening.
You have to make an emotional commitment to a story in order to tell it like this. That's one thing that I have learned through some of my adventures, not only as a journalist, but as someone who's an experiencer as well. Josh, what emotionally charged you about this story?
Well, I think something that gets lost in the shuffle so many times when you're dealing with a story like this, and it's one of the things that I've had an issue with sort of the ghost hunting community writ large about, is that, these people cease to be people, these people who suffer at the hands of these tragedies. And so here was a woman that lived a difficult life and came to an end. And, for those years before she was recovered, was, to a degree forgotten. And then once she was recovered, was further sort of dehumanized by being sensationalized with this, oh, she turned into soap sort of narrative, which, while true on its face, also sort of diminishes the fact that she had, dreams and desires and wishes all her own. So to bring a real human element to that is I think critical to this story. And I think it might be a good opportunity to talk about, and I think Ryan could speak to this a little bit better as well. But a major part of that sort of human element in the documentary comes through with the addition of Amanda Paulson, whom I've referred to as the sort of beating heart at the center of Lady of the Lake, because as much as it is about Hallie's murder, it's also about Amanda's journey as a paranormal investigator and some of the things that she came to wrestle with, and quite frankly, the sort of connection that she made with Hallie by approaching her from this stance of not as, a motivator of a paranormal story, but as a person. And, how Amanda and Ryan were put in touch with each other. I'll let Ryan speak to that.
Yeah. We were developing this idea, and the research indicated that there was going to be some fairly strange things going on. And the idea of bringing on a paranormal investigator was, fortuitous in a lot of ways that we met Amanda, because I was looking for somebody to take this on that was fairly clinical, and their approach to ghost hunting and paranormal investigation. I have still never seen a ghost hunting TV show, but what I do know about the genre is that the clips I've seen are like really underwhelming in the sense of like the production value, but like drop that over here. It's really like very much like chicanery, right? And there's no substance to most of what I've seen. So I'm not trying to be diminutive of the entire genre. I'm just like saying my experience as unqualified observer. This is what I take from it. So I was looking for somebody that would show up to this case with respect, that would show up to this case with like a clinical nature. When I met her, she had come to do the interview. She showed up on set. She talked about everything that, you know, she did. She has a case that has instruments, and they're all, you know, she knows how to use them and to detect these different, you know, things. And I always felt like, we talked about this in the edit a lot, that like in the end, it was sort of meta, because this story was sort of my POV observing Amanda, who was then going through the motions of learning about this case and all of the strange things and actually doing this paranormal investigation manually, in the same way that we kind of feel like, or at least my partner Francis, who edited this, and I kind of feel like Scully was the POV for the X-Files, right? Like kind of, if you look at the X-Files from Scully's POV, like she wanted to believe. And so we were kind of looking at this as, you know, like that sort of meta connotation outside of Amanda. And really what Amanda brought to it was a very tasteful approach to the paranormal investigation and to Hallie's case, as well as a background that involves historical work, because she's on a board there in Spokane, Washington, as a docent, I believe is the term. I don't know. She's probably moved up by now, but she's done quite a bit of work in the historical world. So she has a deep respect for history and for story, and the relationship of those stories to communities. And so she was really the perfect fit. I mean, I talked to several people, and I just kind of knew right away that Amanda was the right person for this. And she did a great job. Continues to do a great job. And you can follow her at Pretty Effin' Spooky on all of the social things. And the stuff she's doing, she gives presentations and talks on her emotional touch points in the paranormal, and she talks about how people can haunt themselves, and she's really like gone to a very interesting place as a paranormal investigator over the last several years, and it's been a cool and compelling journey to watch. And I think the Lady of the Lake, Hallie Illingworth, this story played at least a role in that development.
Yeah, she's a former guest on this show.
She's a great person and super smart.
She works with at times with, but once a year, maybe twice, with our good friend Merle around here from Paranormal Road Trippers out of Vancouver, who
cool.
I still think is the best paranormal investigator in Canada, but I am biased on that, you know. But and
I'd love to talk to him one day.
Oh yeah, when he's not rescuing puppies, that's what he does for a living. He's an animal control officer. So when he's not rescuing puppies, he's finding ghosts.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting and like bizarre, I didn't really explore it. You know, I do have a deeper respect for it now. I think I had spent so much time looking at the UFO phenomenon and like the history around it, and you know, that I just sort of skipped over a lot of this as, you know, some sort of strange extra dimensional phenomenon that the spiritualists would throw talcum powder on the floor and something from the other side would show its footprints, you know. And it probably wasn't my grandfather or whatever, you know, stopping by, but I never really dug into it. And I do have a deeper respect for it now, but I think that the people that really excel at it, in my opinion, are the ones who do have that like humanistic quality, or like, you know, have good empathy and, you know, an emotional connection to the stuff that they're researching. So that's always really refreshing to hear.
I have worked with Merle on a couple of projects, and I could tell you that I've been chased out of the forest twice by Bigfoot with him. I have seen an alien and a UFO with him. I have watched him get punched, kicked, pinched, shoved by ghosts. I mean, this guy is a magnet. An absolute
Wild.
magnet. Yeah.
Where did you see the UFO? In Canada? In Vancouver?
I was telling Josh before the show,
I don't mean
not-
to interview you, sorry.
Oh no, ask away. That's why we do this unscripted here. That's why you guys didn't have to post your 20 questions to me, so that way you could say, what kind of gear did you use? How did it work? We don't do that here. No, I have an area up here, as I was saying to Josh before the show, that I'm going to be putting a lot of time into next year. And it's tiny. It's in the middle of the forest. It's about 60 yards by 60 yards. And this place is the scariest place I've ever been. And it's in the middle of the forest. And it's got ghosts. It's got UFOs. It's got Bigfoot and wild animals that will rip your head off. It's freaky.
60 by 60, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, that's shockingly small. But honestly, the more I think about it, and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, no, that really does track.
Well, we talked about this a little bit last night, but the old rivers under the granite surface, and what are these natural features type things? It's immediately where your head goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely it does. It's like you have to sort of ask yourself, like, what differentiates this one spot from everywhere else? And to that extent, what differentiates Lake Crescent from everywhere else? Like it's so bizarre that these things do tend to cluster. No, it's not bizarre that these things tend to cluster in certain areas. What's bizarre are the boundaries and the divisions that we've put between these different categories, and when we try to treat them separately. That's the real strange thing, is because there seems to be so much connective tissue between these different things, to the extent that they appear in the same spots oftentimes. And I think that we could all learn a great deal if we would start treating these things on equal footing a little bit more.
There's something that enlivens those window areas, those spaces where these seemingly unrelated but entirely connected phenomena are occurring. And I think that story has a great deal to do with it, and the idea of the egregore. Personally, like, we don't offer that as a final answer in the film because there are no final answers, but in the director's cut of The Lady of the Lake, there's a section with Mark Stavish and Jim Perry, and we cover the egregore for a good 10 minutes or so, and sort of talk through the possibility of that and haunted houses and haunted locations having to do with it. But it has to be more than story. It has to be something enlivening it. But I always go back to us. Like there's something to do with us, right? Because consciousness is the thing. So no us, no experience. But I love the oddly specific number of 60 by 60. Like that's really sticking in my head. That's kind of amazing.
Dude, we'll talk about this during the break, but I could tell you that it's something that literally I'm being haunted by the place.
I believe it.
Yeah.
And Bigfoot too, right? Like, I'm down here in Florida now, and they have these skunk ape sightings, and there's a skunk ape museum. But in Seattle, in the Cascades and in the Olympics outside of town and stuff, I've had actually a couple of experiences that I would attribute to Bigfoot myself, including one where we got some video with my daughter, who's now 18. The one time it was great that she's always on her phone. But that's such a bizarre phenomenon, and it does seem directly related to these other ones, as old Footprints End over here can tell us. That's so crazy. Yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
Well, put it this way: we were gone from our base camp for 20 minutes, and when we came back, there was a fresh 17-inch print 10 feet from our tent. 20 minutes.
Just the one print?
One print.
What do you
It's
think,
always
Josh?
one print.
It happens. It happens. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't want to quite turn this into a Where the Footprints End show, but
It's available on Amazon as well as Lady of the Lake.
right. No, I mean, just if you do dial out and take that sort of 10,000 foot view of this, you get to a point, I think, where you just can't help but start seeing the similarities everywhere between these different things. And I came to this realization because I'm working on a book that should be out in the spring called Fourth Wall Phantoms, which is about, coincidentally enough, narrative and story and fictions that bleed into real life and how those impact the domains of ufology and cryptozoology and parapsychology. But once you sort of, I came to this realization that, a lot of what I do, I feel like, in addition to looking at those small details, is quite frankly resonating with some skeptical arguments. I think that, I think that we should have a body. I think that we shouldn't have a single footprint appear in the middle of nowhere. But at the same time, I talk to people.
Hold that thought. We're going to go to break here. More on Lady of the Lake with Ryan Gerlich and Joshua Cutchin. We'll return on Spaced Out Radio. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I love Bigfoot stories.
Oh, dude!
I should have kept an eye on the clock. I'm sorry.
That's okay, bud.
But to finish that idea for everybody that's listening, because everybody who's on the other side of this is gonna be like, he's a skeptic. No, but like I sympathize with these skeptical arguments, and at the same time, I talk to people. I talk to people who are rational, kind, professionals and people who have a lot to lose, people who don't want their stories broadcast, who are very clear about what they've seen. And so how do you reconcile those two things? I think you have to get weird. I really do.
You do. And one of the things that I think this film did for me was allow me to, like, when I was making this, I was the CEO of a 50-year-old company. And, I've since jumped ship on that lifestyle and am doing other stuff in like computer vision and AI. And I'm much happier not being that, but I was never going to talk about any of this stuff. Yeah. So like, as we were getting into this, like by proxy, I'm having somebody else talk on this documentary about, the window area and the potential that these UFOs and these orbs and all of this stuff just might be connected to this trauma incident in this community. And I think what happened was it enlivened me and like almost gave me permission. So like just exploring the topic through my medium gave me the permission to now speak about it, further. And I think that that's a really interesting thing, to like somebody like you who, talks about this stuff every night, somebody like Josh who writes about it, for a living. I love that. And I know for me, just being able to talk about it at all is a giant leap, and I think that I encourage anybody who's into this stuff to use their tools, whatever they are, to make things that allow them to explore that component of themselves, because it's just super helpful.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This location, we go in very, very skeptical. I mean, it's the only place I've been in the forest where you never hear birds.
Yeah.
You see the birds flying, you never hear the birds.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rarity.
That's
You may
unnerving.
hear them
Yeah.
You may hear them off in the distance, but when they're flying over that area, they're quiet. It's the strangest thing.
Yeah, are there like electrical effects at all, or
No,
sensations of any kind, or?
Oh, there's lots of sensations out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of sensations. I don't want to look like I'm being dramatic or anything like that. the place scares me.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
that's good.
it is, but like I was talking to Merle about this earlier on tonight, and like I don't feel safe there.
Mm.
I don't feel safe there, but I know that I have to study there. I have to figure out what is going on. And it's troublesome. Like it's very difficult to find the words to describe
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. How close should the moth fly to the flame?
Mhm.
It's
Well,
one of those
and
situations.
I think Stanley Kubrick said it really well, that Icarus should have just built better wings.
Yeah. What I'm doing with this project that I'm starting in May of next year, because I have to wait for the snow to melt to get there. And I know that's foreign to you, Ryan, in Florida.
Nowadays, yes, it's very foreign.
But I'm literally going to let them, whoever they are, as part of the phenomena, dictate what happens.
That's what you should do.
Yeah.
And
You just have to yield to it.
Oh yeah, I know. I already know what I'm doing. I'm supposed to do for the first 6 times up there, and it's literally just sit there.
Again, oddly specific.
Yeah.
Where does this information come from?
It's like it's telepathic, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, it can be. I mean, I yeah, we can talk about it more with the Lady of the Lake, but
If you guys wanted to come out and check it out, I would take you up there. I would 100% take you there.
yeah, this place that's really scary that I'm like really freaked out about, and I'm a little worried for my safety. Just go ahead and buy a plane ticket, fly up here, and we'll go.
I mean, I've been pushing myself more lately. I've done so much more field work in the past like 18 months compared to what I had been doing, and some of that is like, I remember just wherever I can get my hands on it, right? So there's a local ghost hunting group that I'm a probationary member of, and there's also just friends of mine who take me to places. But I remember there was one instance where there was our investigation shut down early. And it was I'm not supposed to say too much about the location, but there was one spot on this pretty massive property where stuff happened, and it involved some tight spaces, and it was the most active spot. And so like the entire thing had shut down, and I went back there by myself. Yeah.
Cut you off there. Here we go. Lady of the Lake is what we're talking about tonight on Spaced Out Radio. It's hour number 2 of the big show. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Jellygraph. Jellygraph is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Joshua Cutchin, Ryan Grulich are here. They have a documentary out called Lady of the Lake. This is a documentary where people just go missing in this weird, strange lake in Olympic National Park in Washington State. Let's get right to it. Joshua, Ryan, welcome back.
Happy to be here.
Oh, no, last time it was Ryan. Now it's you, Josh.
That's
awesome.
And my voice cracked like I'm 13 or something. So,
well, you know what? That's great. That's just great. I'm having a lot of fun tonight, guys. I hope you are too, as we got you until the top of the hour about this. Now, this takes place near Chelan, Washington, in Olympic National Park. And the Lady of the Lake, who went missing in the 1930s, who your documentary is on, it's also led to other mysteries there of people who seem to go missing, Josh.
Yes. Yeah. As I sort of mentioned earlier, Lake Crescent is sort of notorious for being a repository of such instances, and it has been the location of some other bodies that have been retrieved. No, they weren't retrieved, right? Israel's deaths were not retrieved from there, Ryan.
No, Israel Keyes, a serial killer who kind of has gone under the radar for most people, but was living in that area for some time. Um, when he was caught, he admitted to some murders that didn't quite get solved before he killed himself in jail. And he admitted to putting at least one body in Lake Crescent, and potentially a second. But what was odd about Israel Keyes, and that, as it relates to the film in particular, was that he spoke about the lake as if the FBI, he literally says, you should have known I was going to use that lake. And he talks about how the temperature of the lake and how it, keeps bodies, pretty much, he imagines the one that he put in there was the same as it was when he set it down in there. And so immediately when I was going through all that archive, I'm thinking, like, this guy knows this story. Like, it just informed a serial killer dumping a body in here. Overall, 83 bodies that I could find, because I did actually bump into the same thing that David Paulides talks about, where when I reached out to the national parks to get information about the missing or dead around Lake Crescent, in or around, I was met with we don't know what you're talking about. We don't keep those kind of records sort of conversation. So those were the ones that we were able to identify as likely or confirmed in the lake, and with only Hallie and then the remains of one of the Warrens was recovered as well. And the Warren wreck in Lake Crescent is a really interesting story too. If you look it up on the internet, they discovered a car that had driven off into the lake and sat on the bottom in this one area for decades, and were able to retrieve the bones of the husband. But very few people come out of the lake. So the colloquialism that the lake never gives up its dead, it's pretty real. And the colloquialism that the lake is bottomless so far stands the test of time, because despite this lake being LiDAR scanned, they have never found the bottom yet. They will, I'm sure. But, it just adds to this mystique that here in the 2000s, that with all of this technology we have, that they still haven't been able to identify the bottom, with the lowest known depth being somewhere around 700 feet.
And I just saw this comment in the chat, so it might be a good point to interject this as well. What I find really interesting about this idea of this bottomless lake that doesn't yield its dead is the fact that one of my favorite, probably my definite favorite, actually, book on lake monsters is Michel Mergier's Lake Monster Traditions. It's out of print. I don't know why someone hasn't republished it. I keep on saying that in the hopes that someone will. But if you can pick up a copy, it's like Passport to Magonia for lake monsters. It's an amazing book. But some of the criteria, not all of them, but some of the criteria that he noted for lakes with lake monsters is that they were described as bottomless, and they were also described as lakes that don't give up their dead. And sure enough, you had mentioned this to me once, Ryan. There's a sea serpent legend. There's a Lake Crescent in Canada, I know, that has or a Crescent Lake in Canada that has a lake monster, but there's a sea serpent legend close to Lake Crescent as well. Is that correct? If I do remember that right?
Yeah, so Port Angeles is the northwesternmost spot in the U.S. So if there are Canadians in the room, if you haven't been over to that side, you take the ferry to Victoria from Port Angeles, and Lake Crescent is 30 miles as the crow flies from Port Angeles. And so this saltwater body that's there, that harbor is said to have a serpentine sort of sea monster that lives in it and disrupts maritime activities every so often.
And, another thing that Mergier noted with his survey of lake monsters is that these lakes, in addition to being bottomless and never giving up their dead, often had rumors of underwater passageways and caverns and such that connected different bodies of water. So it would stand to reason that there's some sort of, if that trend holds, that there might be some sort of connection between these two bodies. And, I walked away from my section, my chapter on lake monsters and ecology of souls, pretty much more terrified of lake monsters than anything, because they are so closely related to the symbol of the dragon and all the negativity that is connotated over the centuries, which would indeed, sort of bring it back around to connect to death. So it seems very appropriate that Lake Crescent would have this sort of reputation.
In the Pacific Northwest, with the way the mountains are and the gullies in between the mountains are, I mean, that's why a lot of people believe they're bottomless. I mean, because that whole west side, like even if you go up towards Vancouver Island, all it is, Vancouver Island is the top of a mountain.
Yep.
That has a strait in between it that goes down 7, 8, 900,000 plus feet, and it's only because that is where the bottom of the mountain is.
And these are glacier carved locations, right? So Lake Crescent is a glacier carved lake. And it used to be a giant lake that was split in half by mountain formations coming up. And the indigenous people tell the story of Storm King, who basically throws this mountain down in between this one lake, creating two due to warring tribes. And a great amount of death occurred when that happened, which to me, you always hear about these sort of like the antediluvian sort of stories and asteroid impacts and, all this kind of stuff. It got me to thinking about, long history that they have and what that actually means. But yeah, glacier carved everything in the Northwest, it feels like. So how deep were these glaciers? I'm guessing in excess of 700 feet.
Oh, if not more. But the one thing that is also in the mountains of the Pacific Northwest is a lot of First Nations legends and areas. I know around here, in my area, and even when I lived near Vancouver, there was a lot of First Nations land where they said, this area is cursed, or this area has a spell on it, or something along those lines. Was that ever investigated at this lake to see if there was any curses or dangers to it from First Nations legend?
Yeah, there was. So during the really deep research phase, it was COVID, and the tribes were not opening up their reservations. And so we were able to get information online, and we did have a local tribe member share with us that there was a haunted nature to this lake, and that they told the story of basically a loon that when you hear the loon, you're hearing the cry of a boy, a child who was trapped inside of the loon because they basically were sucked into the lake by the noise, right? Kind of cooed into the lake by the noise, and then their spirit, after they drowned, went into the loon, and that's what you were hearing. And so they do have at least some stories. I saw somebody ask what I meant when I said colloquialism in there. It's like a local story. So they do have some like stories that are specific to the region, that are relating to this lake and it being haunted, that aren't just from white colonial settlers. Like, this stuff goes back.
Do you believe in those legends, Josh? You're somebody who investigates that.
I mean, I believe in. I mean, I so often think of different topics in the paranormal, the supernatural, what have you, as being very evocative of that old parable of the blind men and the elephant. Every one of them's touching a different part of it, and they all think it's different things. The one touching the trunk thinks it's a snake, and the one touching the ear thinks it's a leaf from a tree, and it's really all the same elephant, right? So I think that all of these stories that we have told ourselves as a species all hold some sort of truth. And, that's by definition, the myths are true in the sense that they all tell deeper, consistent, timeless truth. So yeah, I definitely think that there's something to it. And again, this is sort of the fractal, echoes that you sort of see with this story, because that idea of the loon crying out on the lakes puts me in the mind of these stories of ladies of the lake who might lure you into the lake, and which also brings to mind, mermaids and siren songs luring you out there as well. And also, certain indigenous traditions, especially west of the Mississippi, of these beings known as water babies that make the cries of infants to lure you closer to streams and such. So it all does sort of speak to the same germ of an idea, although it manifests in sort of different ways. And again, the fact that Hallie's tragedy sort of played into this, played into these older, myth themes and archetypes, really, I think is part of what fascinates me about it. I mean, even some of the manifestations of her around the shore of the lake sound a good deal like La Llorona from Latin American traditions. Hallie is sometimes seen crying by the shore of the lake and wearing white, and that's straight out of the La Llorona stuff. So yeah, it's just it's one of those things where you sort of get yourself into this chicken or the egg sort of scenario, where you say, well, these older stories seem so universal and so applicable everywhere, but here we have a specific incident that's well documented through the historical record and was a real person who existed and befell a tragedy, but it's also playing into these archetypal themes. What does that say about reality? And those are the sort of questions that I don't think get asked enough in a lot of popular paranormal media and a lot of popular film and books about the space, is those deeper questions about ourselves and existence itself. And I think Lady of the Lake does a good job of sort of coming right up to that question and sort of inspiring people to embark on their own journey in terms of discovering what that means for them.
Is she seen around?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she is. And interestingly, so like the idea of the weeping woman and the ghost that you might see on the trails that leads you to the lake and then disappears. These are common ways that she's experienced, but the other ways that she's experienced are almost remind me of Mothman and Keel, and she's seen as a harbinger as well, a woman in white standing on the rocks. There's a roadway that hugs the lake that's notorious for people driving off of it into the lake and dying. And so, this is rough country. You'll have landslides, you'll have, inclement weather, all kinds of stuff that could really make it unsafe. And even at one point, if you ever talk to Amanda again, ask her about driving with me in the snow that was super deep out there at one point in my Cadillac with no, traction at all. We're just like, I hope we make it. But that whole area is slippery, and you will see her out on the rocks pointing. And there are stories that one lady tells a story that she experienced where there was a blockage in the road ahead and it was pointed out to them. And there are a lot of stories like that from around the area of a woman in white doing that sort of harbinger work and keeping people safe. So while I found this really interesting, that while there were these stories that were sort of menacing, and would keep you on your toes in that sort of negative sense, there was also a side of this interpretation of Hallie that was helpful and, was literally like trying to save lives. And so to me, that was sort of, again, back to what Josh was saying, this sort of slippery nature of identity and reality in the phenomenon. And everywhere we turned, there was just something else, tying back to this story.
Because again, too, that's not only Mothman, but that's classic urban legend stuff, right? I mean, certain phantom hitchhiker stories will help tell those stories. There's a story not too far from me in Monteagle, Tennessee, that tells the story of a trucker who crashed his rig coming down Monteagle, and his ghost appears to warn people so that they slow down before a particularly dangerous curve. And so you're faced with this. You're faced with these urban legends that we were told are fictions, heard from a friend of a friend, and people who genuinely have seen these things and experienced these things. And we've been taught to sort of treat urban legends as sort of a denigrated form of what we're supposed to be interested in when we're into the paranormal. But I'm not so sure anymore. Like, I'm not so sure that there isn't some sort of in-between realm where like historical fact and urban legends sometimes come together, and sometimes experiencers sit at the center of that Venn diagram.
Yeah. Well, whatever the nature of it is, there's, I mean, we couldn't cover them all. And so anyone who's interested in pursuing this stuff can take a look. There's so many different accounts in this region that, as soon as you start looking, you'll find, like I said, there's the whole rainforest that's nearby, this, giant, amount of Bigfoot sightings. There's the Kenneth Arnold sighting was not far from here. Tons of UFO sightings to this day. And there's really just like a lot of fairy phenomenon. I talked to a girl who saw brownies out there, which I immediately was like, Josh, why are there brownies on the Olympic Peninsula? Well, and if nobody's familiar with brownies, they're like a smaller, even smaller fairy that just looks weird. They look like a little burlap sack type texture. But anyway, so there's all of this stuff going on out there, and there was no way we could fit it all into the film. So I think really where we were able to put our focus was onto these things, mostly that had to do with Hallie. Strange offshoots, though. Even Ted Gunderson, the FBI agent who retired in the 90s and went on to 80s and 90s and became part of the Satanic Panic, who had claimed a psychic inference on ritual murder sites and been correct at least at one point, got on a episode of Geraldo and predicted that very near this park they would find a mass grave. And so then the newspapers locally start cooking up these articles about this area and satanic ritual murders and cults that are out in the forest doing their deeds. And whether any of this is true or not, who knows? I tend to think not, but the idea of like just looking into this area just became overwhelming. And so we certainly had to, tell a story that was meaningful, but you could have gone this way and that way. And so I think that what it really showed me was that if you start looking, you can always do that. You can always start peeling the layers in any area or whatever, and you'll start to address all of this sort of stuff everywhere you look, and the world is just an insane place.
Yeah. Anomalies are like cockroaches. For every one that you see, there are 100 more lurking behind the walls.
Yeah, that's how it felt for sure. Yeah.
When people see her, as we got about 3 minutes to go here before we go to break, what are they seeing, Josh?
Oftentimes it is a woman in white standing beside the lake, sometimes crying. Sometimes it does match the description of Hallie, and other times it's no one gets close enough. But the reason that it is usually interpreted as being a specter or rather than just a person is that sometimes she will vanish in front of their eyes. Brian, is that a pretty succinct description?
Yeah, that's as concise as it gets. The only thing I'd add is that another common way that she is seen is inside of the lodge that's on property there, where she did work up until her disappearance.
So nobody ever gets close enough to have a conversation with her. Like like every town or city seems to have this lady in white.
Yeah, they do.
Like there's one in Vancouver where when she gets picked up, it's always a rainy night. It's in the fall, and she'll get into the vehicle, start a conversation. Driver will say, "Well, where are you going? Why don't you have a jacket on?" Whatever it may be, and then she goes, "Just drive," and the next thing you know, she vanishes in the car.
Yeah, no. Nothing reported where they were able to get that close. That doesn't mean it's not out there. It just means that we didn't find it in the stories. And I have a feeling that I could still be out there interviewing people right now and getting new stories, and just keep doing that. But I'm really obsessed with the Gulf Breeze incident right now. So, but anyway, yeah, like you could still be looking at this stuff. So no, sadly, no.
Have any of the other ghosts, Ryan, come out to give information like the lady in white has, or Lady of the Lake?
It depends on what was contacted at the end of the film, right?
Yeah,
right,
I mean, to say this briefly is going to be a challenge, but the assumption is that during our investigation, we might have been talking to a larger body of entities, or maybe something like this, but whatever it was, it's not discussed in the film. We had a lot of stuff happening to us off the camera, and we don't market the film this way. I'm not even going to get into it, but essentially we had to engage outside support to come and try to sort of make offerings to whatever was going on out there to kind of calm it down, because something or a series of somethings were very large and powerful in communicating with us there, and likely, sort of were interfering with us in our regular lives. So again, a great respect and a healthy respect for this stuff is required the deeper you go into it. But there, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, there is a lot of death there that enlivens something. And whether
Let's
that's just a,
let's
yeah.
leave it at that, because we have another 30 minutes with Ryan Grulich and Joshua Cutchin. Their documentary, Lady of the Lake. It's on Amazon right now. This is Space Down Radio. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
I'm going to step out for 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
I'm just going to put you guys in the green room. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
All right. Be right back, guys. All right, I'm back. Let's get these bad boys back in here. This is a lot of fun tonight, guys. A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you make it easy, so I appreciate it.
The chat's hilarious.
Yeah, I know. It's
There's people in there. There's somebody there that was like, Ryan's sad. Like honey, Ryan's tired. Ryan's running an AI launch and promoting a movie, but you're awesome, whoever you are in there. But it's just they're clowns. I love it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we got a great room here.
Yeah, you do. It's so funny. I like WD-40, man. He said it earlier that the normies are the dang normies. I was like, yeah.
I'm trying to smile more for Cat Chaser.
No, don't smile more. My friend John, who I also work with on a lot of films, he calls like this, what I'm doing right now, he calls it the Grulich smile. We'll be in development meetings, like pitching shows, and he's like, you gotta smile, dude. I'm like, this is my smile.
This is the smile.
It's like, this is what I do, man. You want pretty pictures or do you want smiles?
Hold on right there. Hi, Linda. How you doing? Thank you tonight to Cosmic Joe, Philip, Mel WD-40, Richard, and Jennifer for the super chats. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can wear our stuff out in public and be proud of it. So, yeah, you can wear it to more places than just a garage sale, too. Thank you, Deb. Here we go. The second half of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Another show flying on by. My name is Dave Scott. We got Ryan Grulich and Joshua Cutchin here talking about their documentary, The Lady of the Lake. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives because they're always free. They'll never be charged. YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Joshua Cutchin, Ryan Grulich, Lady of the Lake. And right before the break, we were talking about legends and whether or not this place has been cursed, this place is haunted, whether it's just a far enough place where it's a dumping ground for mass murderers. I mean, this is scary stuff when you start looking at how many people have gone missing in this area. And, you know, Ryan, earlier you kind of mentioned that you talked to David Politis about the area, who's most known for missing the 411. And, you know, David is a great guy. He's been on this show, but he can be kind of grumpy in sharing information at times. You know, were you guys having a common consensus that there is something weird going on here?
So maybe I misspoke, but what I did actually meet David Politis once in Ocean Shores, Washington. And he was fine, an interesting guy. And I do appreciate the work that he does, but where the confluence happened was when I actually reached out to the National Park Service and they said, we don't keep that information and we don't have that information for you. And they go, well, maybe there's something in the archive. I said, well, I'd be happy to come down and dig through the archive. You know, I got time, right? And I kept chasing them and they would never respond to it. So what I was saying is I actually felt like maybe Politis might be putting on a little bit, that you weren't able to get this information, because how could you not have that information, like in some capacity, right? Like 6 months ago, somebody went missing in there and you don't have a report on it. Like, are you kidding me? We can't FOIA that. But he's, in my experience, Politis is telling the truth with that 100%, because there was no access to the information. Now, I didn't talk to him about this case, but I think it actually does fall in line, with some of that missing 411 stuff, because there are still people going missing in the Olympic National Forest, which it's a huge place, and people go out there in flip-flops thinking it's going to be, a fun day on the trail. and then their fairy food or whatever. But, you know, rest in peace. It's late. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. But, you know, like this idea of going out there and basically being unprepared for the elements, and people get lost pretty commonly. So
How do you tell the difference between what is something nefarious caused by another human being and what is somebody just maybe getting lost in the forest? Because the one thing that I have learned from the forest is it can play tricks on you. The forest is weird that way. I remember I had one situation where I had my original Sasquatch spot that I had where we had found 2 prints, and we were probably 200 feet off the road, maybe 250 feet off the road. I'd been to that location at that point maybe 40, 50 times. And at one point, I didn't know which way was out. And
You were pixie led.
yeah.
I mean, that's a classic thing in the British Isles, is that either you are led astray into a place that is unfamiliar, or you have familiar surroundings rendered unfamiliar. And it was always being called being pixie led, or pissy.
And there's also missing time usually involved with that. Or at least like atemporal, right? So you come out and it's, you know, 4 or 5 hours later. There's several cases too that Politis covers that fall into that space. Like he talks about some of that. One in particular at Mount Rainier, which isn't far from there, I remember him telling, which felt very much like a pixie-led story. And but yeah, no, how do you tell the difference? You are making inferences, right? Like I think you can't know. I look at the anecdotal evidence around this stuff, and try my best to sort of suss out, you know, what the person was seeing and what they're saying, and just be a good listener. And if that story aligned to our case, then it might have made it into the film. But there was an excess of stuff that just didn't make it in, because I couldn't imagine how it lines up to Hallie's story, but definitely adds to the overall weird flavor of what's going on out there.
Yeah, what I've always found interesting about the missing 411 stuff is that it sort of does function as a Rorschach test for whatever you're interested in. You know, it always sort of has the hallmarks of being Bigfoot activity or being UFO activity, or, you know, of course, I say that with full irony in the fact that I'm convinced it's fairy activity, right? Because I have such an affinity for fairies. But it really does seem to respond to the data points seem to respond to whatever you're really interested in. And to that extent, you know, people have mapped on cave systems and rainfall and bodies of water to things
smiley face killers,
but let's specifically thinking about, like, you know, bodies of water in Bigfoot sightings and rainfall in Bigfoot sightings. And there's always a correlation there, which, you know, obviously speaks to the sort of the setting at the heart of Lady of the Lake, this connection to water. And, you know, there's the paranormal does seem to have an affinity for water. I mean, Claude Lecouteau of the Sorbonne said that he felt that fairies were sort of a predominantly aquatic genus, so to speak. And there are all these stories of you know, UFOs entering and leaving bodies of water, and a lot of ghost stories too associated with water. So it all seems to speak to that.
Yeah, and again, mysterious, unknowable. Even water that's 50 feet deep, you don't know what's going on below the surface.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of unconscious / subconscious symbolism going on there. You know, before the advent of mirrors, that was probably your only way to see your own reflection. So, you know, there's the possibility of something somewhat like scrying going on when you're staring at, you know, the inky blackness of the water and seeing your own reflection as well. So I think there's just so much symbolism in lakes as well.
And Lake Crescent is eerily clear. Like, it really is. Like, when you're close to the shore, I mean, you can just, it's crystal clear. This is beautiful water, beautiful lake. And you just don't want to get in it. I mean, like, and not because people, I mean, it informs it, right? Obviously, but I've talked to people that are just like, I'm local and I don't swim here. Like, you know, I just don't feel right about it. And obviously story tells plays a role in that. But it's yeah, it's really clear. And you start to think about like, well, how far down could we actually see? There's some footage in the film of divers. I saw somebody in the chat talking about how they had been diving in lakes, maybe for recovery of something, but there were divers that had gone down, and we used some of that footage, and it's just so clear. It's beautiful, haunting, but beautiful. And most of the water that I've ever been in the bottom of is, muddy, gross.
Cannons or red Georgia clay where I am. Yeah.
Right. So it's like this clarity of that water also sort of, for me at least, it took away that ability to scry. You're not like looking in this and like, you're like looking at it.
True.
But that made it scarier for some reason to me, just to be able to see what's going on. So it's weird.
At some point, have other sightings been seen there outside of the paranormal? Have there been cryptid Sasquatch sightings there, UFO sightings that have brought high strangeness too, Ryan?
Yep. Yeah. All connected. And there's a ton of reports. There's a paranormal Facebook group for Port Angeles that the proprietor of, I spent some time with him, and just got it laid on me. And, tons of reports, tons of photos, beings of small and tall varieties, and orbs, and physical craft. And, again, we just barely touch on it at the film because I was just like, what? I don't have 10 hours, but yeah, there's absolutely all of those things happening out there.
And hopefully, in the future, we'll have Ryan and I will have a little bit more time to sort of explore subject matter in even longer forms than a documentary. We're working on something right now. We're in pre-production that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I should tell them about it since we're here.
Yeah, we're here. Why not? We're all friends here.
All right. Yeah. So, as part of getting to know each other throughout over the past several years, we are in pre-production on a UFO documentary series. And, I know some people might be like, oh, another UFO documentary series. But again, it speaks to something that I think I mentioned at the beginning of our chat, which is like, let's move beyond, do these things exist? Oh, here's some good footage. And let's start really asking the questions about what these things are. And, for so long, for well over half a century, the extraterrestrial hypothesis has been the most popular solution for the flying saucer mystery. And while that may at the end of the day have some bearing on what's truly going on, I think now is the time to try to bring some alternative hypotheses to the greater public. Things like the occult, like spirit phenomena, some of the stranger aspects of possibly being us in some form or fashion. I've said to Ryan many times, I'm not sure if the public is ever going to be ready for looking at these alternative solutions to the UFO mystery, but if there ever is a time, the time is now. So that's something that we're really excited about, Cassie and I, towards the future, is having the chance to really sort of breathe into those other avenues of exploration and try to bring those to bear on this question that, again, more and more people by the day are taking as a reality. And to say, well, okay, it could be this, and it's probably a combination of things. Let's take a look at some of these other things that you aren't getting fed to you by popular culture.
I'm just really stoked to talk about Aleister Crowley summoning the Greys.
Have you guys? Are you guys bringing Alan Greenfield into that?
I think that was already done.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a pretty lengthy list of people that we're looking to speak with, but Alan would be one of those sort of people that I can think of a specific episode we have in mind, Ryan, that for which Alan would be a great addition. But yeah, I mean, yeah, precisely. Yeah, it is one of those situations where, I really do admire a lot of the people that we hear a lot from, but there are also people in this space that we don't hear a lot from, and to really have a chance to platform those voices, including Indigenous voices and, female voices and women voices, and just people that you don't normally get on your average, network programming. to talk about this subject, I think, is something that has been sorely lacking. So a chance to bring that into the equation is I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I would say too that for me, the process of working in any forms of like recreations on these topics is going to be really interesting. And um, anybody who, it sounds like probably there's a lot of people here that have had, some sort of paranormal experiences or encounters. And to be able to, like, as a filmmaker, to go in and visualize some of this stuff is going to be really, I think, personal and interesting. But with the particular set of like boundaries that you're kind of put in, to talk about this right now in general, if you want money from somebody to make it, you're going to get in this box and tell it this way. We're just gonna figure out our own money and tell it the way we want. And that's one of the things that I'm interested in with work in this space, is not making it my day job, because I don't want to have to answer to anybody about the content that I'm making. And just, if it takes me a year longer or whatever, then so be it, because I have other things to do. That's fine. But at least we're able to do it like with a form of integrity to the goal that we're setting out to do. And I think that that's maybe what's missing at times, is like high production value and the ability to tell your own story. Like they kind of are like tough to make synergize. And you have to either be really hustling or exceptionally lucky, or both, or whatever. But that's the goal with the UFO series, is to do that.
I think that's going to be awesome, man. It's good. Honestly, it sounds like it's going to be, fantastic that you're bringing in different outlooks of people rather than the same people who are on every documentary that is out there.
Well, that is the hope, and who knows how that will affect. Who knows how that will affect how many people watch it and, and funding, quite frankly. But honestly, that's what I'm interested in, and I know that's what Ryan's interested in, because there are some really interesting ideas out there that just aren't getting quite as much airtime. And I could not do that on my own. I've had an idea for something like this for a while. I could not do that on my own. So to have Ryan at my side, with honestly him having such a keen eye for production value, one of the things that I love about The Lady of the Lake is just how well put together it is and how beautiful it is. I think I'm excited at the potential for what this can be, and our fingers are crossed as hard as they can be moving into the new year.
We only got about 7 minutes left, and we want to push everybody over to Lady of the Lake where they can watch it. Ryan, where can people find it?
Yeah, well, Amazon Prime, and I saw that looked like maybe an admin had put a link in the chat, but Amazon Prime and iTunes tend to give us the most money. So we want to steer people towards those. But all of the sort of platforms that are common for streaming, TVOD type movies like this, you can find it now. So my hope is that people would go and take a look at it. And they have little review functions that, are on these things, just leaving any sort of review. Well, a good one. If you don't like it, don't review it. But, otherwise, take a look at it, review it. And, if you're interested in it, explore your area, right? Like, this is just legend tripping in a lot of ways too. Yeah. And you have these spaces around you, and try to roll it over and explore your slice of the world, and, view it through your community's lens. And I'm sure you'll find something equally as interesting. And maybe you'll point a camera at it and we'll tell a bunch of these stories and have fun with it.
And, speaking to Ryan's comment there about, which outlet gives us we get the most proceeds from, just like with my books, I don't write my books to make money. I make money to justify writing my books in terms of the resources and how many books I have to buy to write the book, to do the research and stuff, and paying artists and paying, interior layout people, and, sort of paying it forward. So that's part of the reason that enters the discussion. And yeah, I would certainly point everybody to, if you can't find it, I had some trouble. I was telling Ryan the other day, I had some trouble finding it from the home screen of my Amazon Fire Stick. You might have to go into the Amazon Prime app to actually find it, depending on which outlet you choose. But that just look for it a little bit harder, and you'll find it.
Yeah. Well, and two, right? Like, I mean, I don't feel bad about asking people to go a certain way for money because, movies are expensive to make. And
Yes.
if you want to do it well, like if you want to see good independent films, they cost money. And I don't anticipate making like some whale profit on this thing or any of this stuff. Like that's not the function, but the films pay for themselves and, the next one. Right. And so that's really kind of how this works. But I think too, right, like there's some great stuff coming out over the next year that I keep hearing about that I think is in line with the Lady of the Lake in terms of looking at this from a more Fortean approach. So, keep your eyes out for that type of stuff. But if you really like something that is going to take a hard left turn from where you thought you were going to go, and you're open to that sort of experience, as well as interested in the paranormal and true crime, then this is going to be a really great movie for you. Everybody who's watching it has been really kind about their reviews, even if they don't know me and don't have to be. So I think that luckily people are enjoying it, which is cool.
I think that's great. And the one thing that I like about you guys in just hearing about this and the other projects that you plan on working on moving forward is it excites me when I see something different.
Yeah.
One thing that bugs me, especially about UFO and Bigfoot shows, is it's always the same people saying the exact same thing with just a different title.
Yeah.
And no offense to people like Richard Dolan or Nick Pope or any of those people who are on every single documentary. I realize you need the names in order to get the public to watch, and they got a large cult following with whatever they're doing and whatever they're participating in. But fresh voices, man, fresh stories. Like we talked about Roswell earlier, Joshua, where we don't need another Roswell book. We need to put that energy to find that next Roswell and tell that story for the first time. And that's what I love about what you guys are doing, man.
I could not have said it better.
I can add that Jim Mars was doing a doc in Roswell and had to check one of his crew members into a hospital to get some care, and was told that the hospital was haunted. And because they were sitting there hanging out, he decided to investigate. And when he asked what the ghost appeared to be, one of the gals said, "Well, it's about child size. It seems to have this large head and big black eyes." And after some research, Mars determined that this hospital was in fact on the old grounds in Roswell, where hypothetically the body, if there was one, would have been taken from the Roswell crash. So he deduced that in fact what these people were seeing was the ghost of the Roswell alien. And at that point, now you're getting into where I like it, with Roswell. But yes, the rest of it you can have. Like, I'm good. There's nothing there for me anymore. But that one I like.
No, I think it's great. And there are literally, and people don't even realize this, there are thousands of stories out there from all of these communities and even big cities, whether it's LA or New York or whatever, that are hidden gems.
Yeah.
Even big cities have their little communities inside of them that know the secrets or know these stories of hauntings or whatever it may be. And I just think, and I'm not saying this as a shot at you guys because you're doing it different, but I think it's a real laziness in the community that we're always trying to one up the other person on the same story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just want fresh, man. That's what excites me about everything. Quick here, we got 90 seconds. Josh, what's your best holiday tradition?
Oh, my best holiday tradition? Oh man, that's really hard. Baking cookies. I'm just gonna say baking cookies.
You look like a baking cookie.
Yeah, I do.
How about you, Ryan?
I think the good old universal pagan tradition of placing a star on top of a Yule tree is probably my favorite.
Mine is, I have 3 kids. I have a 25-year-old daughter, a 21-year-old daughter, and an 11-year-old son. And to this day, every year, Santa Claus in my house is real.
Good.
And
Yep.
and even my older kids who've said to me, Dad, you don't need to do that. We know. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
No, I mean, you become the Santa Claus archetype for a brief window of time. Yep. 100%.
Yep. So Santa Claus is very real in my household, and I refuse to give that one up. Absolutely refuse. I had to give up Daddy for Dad. I'm not giving up Santa Claus.
So the full suit and everything.
No, no, not that, but Santa
You
Claus is
should.
real. That's all I'm going to say.
I love
Joshua,
that.
Ryan Grulich, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio talking about Lady of the Lake. Good watching for this weekend. Coming up next, Swamp Dweller. Then little Timmy James will be in for the UFO report. We'll be right back after this with hour number 3.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. That was awesome.
Oh, thank you. It was a ton of fun.
That flew
Yeah.
by.
The chat is so funny.
I know.
I was like watching it. They're just ridiculous. You got a great group of people there. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you. Josh, I want to fill you in more on that story.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna head to bed. Good night,
you've got an
gentlemen.
early morning. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah,
Take
I
care,
gotta be
guys.
at Jacksonville Airport in 4 hours. All right, take care, guys.
Good night. Good night, Josh. We'll talk soon.
Oh yeah, we'll fill in later. Sounds good.
Yep. Take care.
All right. Thanks so much.
Good
Bye.
night. Mama Catherine, how you feeling, my dear? Please give me an update. Love you, dear. Mwah. I'll be right back. I am back. We got about 90 seconds. Let's bring in little Timmy James. What's happening, buddy?
Oh, not too much. What about you?
Oh, just had a great interview there.
Yeah, it was very good.
I need to have a chat with you
Uh-oh.
off the air.
Was it
All
me?
bad stuff, because I'm all about the bad stuff.
I know you are. That's why I'm
And
scared.
I'm all about the bass, all about the bass.
Jesus.
You know how it goes.
Yeah.
It's about our project.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a good talk with Merle
Oh, right on.
earlier this evening about it. So,
Cool.
yeah, man. I got big plans.
Big plans.
Hello, lovely and talented Juliana McGill.
Yeah, my eye filled right up today.
Oh, nice.
Again. It's like,
Oh, nice.
mm-hmm.
You're not having much luck. You need an eye patch.
Be a pirate.
Arr. Mm-hmm.
Where's all
Thank you tonight to Joe, Philip, Mel, Richard, Jennifer, and Deborah Rooney for the super chats. We're going to get going in 3 seconds. Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us as we bring the weird and strange to you each and every night. Reminder, well, not a reminder, let's first say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Mumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Let's take a look. It is Jellygraph. Jellygraph is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. As a heating and air tech, it's not uncommon for me to work in some ancient buildings or be out working late at night on emergency calls. In this particular account, I was installing a geothermal system in an old house from the 1700s on a distillery's land that was being renovated as a tasting venue for bourbon. This house has seen a lot of history and was the home of one of the first distiller families in Kentucky. It's been through American Revolution, Civil War, along with, unfortunately, being the home of several slaves, since Kentucky was a border state. The slaves will be necessary to this account later on, in my belief. I spent a lot of time there. I drove to the site near the Frankfurt area from Louisville a couple times. I would go a couple times a week and would stay from first light until dark during the late fall. I would stay there long hours and be the first tradesman in and usually the last out, considering that the foreman wanted the heat on the drywall and all the finishing done as fast as possible. One night, it was around 6:30 p.m. Because of the time of year, it was already pitch black outside. I installed a dehumidifier in the cellar before packing my tools and heading home for the night. I looked down and focused on ensuring I had all of my tools in the low light. I heard footsteps in the basement adjacent to the cellar and assumed it was one of the electricians until the man climbed up and into the basement with me. At this point, I was still a bit unfazed, and I figured it was the next shift of safety officers coming around to check credentials and ensure I had the proper safety orientations. I was still looking at the dirt floor, picking up pieces of metal and wire from my workday, and without glancing up, I asked, "Hey man, how's it going?" and was met with silence. I looked up, confused, since it was unlike any of the safety officers I know, who generally were pretty chill and talkative, to ignore me. But it wasn't actually anyone I had known. It was a tall and lean young black man around my age. and as I looked at him closer, my eyes adjusted to the low light. I could tell his clothes were very old and ragged. We both each nodded cordially at each other, and then he vanished right in front of my eyes. This experience didn't freak me out necessarily. We had a mutual understanding of wanting to be seen and understood for our work. However, another night I was finishing up some work in the crawl space and encountered a more malevolent type presence or creature or whatever. I was installing some flexible insulated ducts and had a small battery-powered work light that used the same type of batteries that my drill did. I noticed the light started flashing a weird pattern indicative of a low battery, which confused me since it was on a fresh battery that I had just taken off the charger before I came here. It finally went out and wouldn't turn back on, and my phone light wasn't working either because of the bitter cold up in the hills of central Kentucky. Then I heard something that startled me to my core. A low growl from another part of the crawl space, just around the corner behind me. I initially dismissed it as a raccoon or some sort of pissed off possum, and continued trying to get my light back on so I could pack up my tools and go home. The growling stopped, but I started to feel even more uneasy. I felt like I was being watched, intently. I continued to dismiss it, but I think me ignoring it just pissed it off more. I felt a strong jerking on my leg, like something was pulling on me with both hands. I started cussing up a storm until it let go. I just threw as much as I could into my bag and booked it the heck out of there, never to return. The following day, I went into my supervisor's office and explained to him that it would be more economical to have a tech who lived closer take over the job, leaving out the details of what happened. Thankfully, I was unassigned and I'd never had to go back to that site again.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another creepy story. If you want more just like that, just head to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. Puts up stories nearly every day. And you literally got thousands upon thousands of great stories just like that to creep you out at night. Let's get to the UFO report.
That is an interplanetary flying space saucer. You have made me very angry. Very angry indeed.
Little Timmy James is here with the UFO report. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing pretty good, man. You?
I'm doing great. I made a mistake and I went to A&W for dinner tonight.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. It was good.
Oh, yeah.
It was real good. But I got a beef with A&W here.
Sorry.
The pun intended. Their drinking cups are so thin now. You can barely carry them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know how many times I've squished those cups and spilt my beverage on me.
Yep.
Number one. But
Yeah.
number two, their paper bags are thinner.
Yeah.
I grab the paper bag, it almost drops and it starts ripping out of my hand. So I gripped it tighter, and you know how I was complaining about my elbow the other
Yes.
night?
Yes.
Well, re-injured it now. All because I was grabbing a paper bag. I'm either falling apart or literally A&W, your bags suck and your cups suck.
I'm re-injured. The thing that I find with those A&W cups is you're right. They're so thin, they actually start to leak. Like if you don't get them done within like maybe a half hour, you find
Yes.
the rims start to leak into.
Oh, I hate that.
First world problems, man.
Really is. Really is. Man. Interesting stuff in the UFO world today.
Yes.
Around drones as well.
Mm.
What do you got?
Definitely drones. We got some more drone stuff. So a New Jersey mayor has a new theory on the drones that's spotted over the state. They're searching for missing, he figures that they're searching for missing radioactive material. So Belleville Mayor Michael Mellem has theorized that the lights people have been seeing above Essex County are looking for something. What might they be looking for? He said, maybe that's radioactive material, he stated. Mellem said that a shipment of radioactive material was delivered to the area, but was damaged and empty when it arrived. Earlier this week, the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission issued an alert that a piece of medical equipment used in cancer scanning was lost in transit on the 2nd of December. While it was being shipped to NASA Cancer Center in Gloucester County in southern New Jersey. The device in question is an Eckert and Ziegel HEGL 0132 and was being shipped for proper disposal. As the mayor said, the container transporting the device had been damaged and arrived empty. The device contains a small amount of radioactive material, germanium 68, which is used in PET scans. According to the regulatory agency, the radiation produced by the material in the device registers less than a category 3 on the International Atomic Energy Agency scale, meaning it is very unlikely to cause permanent injury to individuals or contain a very small amount of radioactive material that would not cause permanent injury. So the radioactive material theory has been repeated on social media and spread around amongst more conspiracy-minded individuals. The problems with the theory are numerous. If the government is willing to share the fact that radioactive material is missing, there would be no reason to not disclose that that's what the drones are searching for, or parts of that device. Further, there's already a team dedicated to searching out dangerous nuclear material called NEST, the Nuclear Emergency Support Team. Is the umbrella designation that encompasses all DOE and NNSA radiological and nuclear emergency response functions. In other words, if there was an actual threat posed by the missing device, a NEST team would be in action, not drones of unknown origin aimlessly crisscrossing the skies of New Jersey. So on Tuesday, U.S. officials issued an explanation for the lights over New Jersey. According to the government, the lights are a combination of traditional aircraft sightings, commercial and hobby drones, stars, planets, and things mistaken for aircraft. In a joint statement by the U.S. Defense Department, the U.S. Homeland Security Department, and the FBI and the FAA, fewer than 100 of the more than 5,000 reported sightings in New Jersey, they say, warranted an investigation. So that, like I said, that's out in the open now. That's another theory, and I don't know. I don't know what to think about that either. What's that?
I think we brought that one up.
Well, we brought you and we did, what was it, yesterday, I think it had popped up. But it's interesting. I mean, there's some points in this that I kind of go, could it be possible? Is that what they're doing? Is they're searching for something? But yeah, now the mayor's gone out and dropped it on the city, or basically the whole township that he's taking care of. But I was like, okay, so theory number 976.3.
Of course. Of course. What else is new? What else is new? Did you hear the story today? I don't know if you got it in your report or not. Please forgive me if you do.
No, go ahead.
That the FAA is now banning drones in certain part of the state.
Yeah. Until I think the 21st of January or something like that. Yeah, I saw that as well. I actually, when I was blazing through some of this stuff, I thought it just rung a bell, and I was like, okay, well, I thought the airspace over a lot of those areas had already been dedicated as closed. But yeah, I think from what I'm understanding, is that they've actually tightened it up quite a bit. And again, same thing. It's getting close to the holidays too, right? So I'm sure that they want to tighten stuff up just in case. A lot of people traveling, a lot of places, people going places, and yeah, it's just chaos at this time of year, obviously. So I'm sure that has something to do with it. Also, most likely the drones. But yeah, I saw it and I was kind of like, okay, here we go.
I want to comment on that for a second here, because for what they're trying to do is they're trying to get rid of the copycats.
Yeah.
Okay. They're trying to get rid of the as they call them, the Walmart kids who went and bought a bunch of drones. They're trying to get rid of the YouTubers who are, trying to make money off these videos, off of clickbait and everything like that. And Lord knows that's happening a lot right now.
Yeah.
And more people jump on the bandwagon to doing that because humans, one thing that we do is we're really good at copycatting.
Yes.
And I understand why they want to do that.
Yeah.
And I was talking to John Lieberman of Howard Stern 101 today about that on WPHT in Philadelphia. And he was asking me that same question. And, it makes sense that they want to do that. But at the same time, they're still saying, oh, no, there's no threat. We don't know where these are coming from, but there's no threat.
Right.
You don't need to worry. You don't. Well, what about the other drones?
Yeah.
You still haven't admitted that they're government. You're leading us on to believe that. Could be some aliens in there.
Yeah,
Could very
absolutely.
well be, but the reality of it all is they're still not providing answers. And to me, I think this is the start of the shutdown of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. It seems to not to be losing momentum, but I think what it's doing is it's starting to lose that razor's edge of focus. I think you're right. I'm starting to see things drift off, and you're starting to see people pop up with different news things and little tidbits that really don't have a lot to do with drones. I mean, even today, like when you're talking about copycats, going through some stuff, and there's some guy sitting on a patio in Los Angeles at a restaurant just inside or just outside of Beverly Hills, and him and his wife were sitting there, and or his girlfriend or whatever, and they were filming, and KTLA, I think, jumped on it. And I could be totally wrong, but then when I went and researched it after that, I think somebody was copycatting and kind of set this video up. And yeah, I thought, oh, now they're in LA. And I was like, okay, so but yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. And I'm kind of hoping, and I'm sure that a lot of people are, that this is gonna wind down and it really, you know, everything's just gonna fall on the table and go, okay, yeah, this is what we were doing, and have an explanation that is at least feasible and satisfies the people. But yeah, I'm starting to see the impatience has dropped and the interest seems to be waning, if that makes any sense.
Is the interest waning, or is it something about the government wanting to change the narrative and get out of this story?
I think I would suspect that the government's trying to change the narrative. Like, again, repetitive. We've talked about this. They back themselves into a corner, so now they've got to do something, and I think that's a major part of it. 100% is that yeah, they're trying to change the narrative, but I also think that people are kind of not complacent. That's not the word. They're just kind of getting, oh, well, if you're not going to tell us, I guess we're just going to put up with these stupid things flying around. I mean, what are you going to do? You're not allowed to shoot at them, or you're not allowed to take them down. They're seeing them constantly. I think they're getting used to it, and I think, like, and that's perfect for the government to be able to change the narrative like you suggest.
The other thing too is another warning came out about people shooting at these things as
Mhm.
well as pointing lasers at them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was big issues with that. I mean, because in the end, if people can't tell a drone from a helicopter or an airplane,
Mhm.
that could be very dangerous to the pilots.
Yeah. And you're right. I think that's what that all was about. And it wasn't about, oh, we're worried about, wrecking drones. I think that's what it's just safety in the air, because I mean, we've seen it. I mean, Vancouver, when it wasn't even obviously aliens, but during the fireworks, they had planes and stuff on all the boats out in the harbor. There was guys out there with lasers at the nailing the police helicopters and stuff like that. And there was some pretty serious, very, very close, very badly, almost accidents in the air. So yeah, I think it's just a safety measure, and yeah, don't do it. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Blind some pilot.
And always remember, as we've stated before, what goes up must come down.
Mhm.
It's basic physics. You shoot a bullet in the air, it still comes out. Even at terminal velocity, it slows down to terminal velocity.
Mhm.
That could still hurt someone very, very bad.
Yeah, no question about it. That's scary. And yeah, don't endanger anybody, people. Just be patient, I guess. And it's easy to say because we're on the other side of on the continent. But yeah, it's we just got to think about stuff out there and yeah, be careful.
4 minutes to go. What else do you got for us?
Basically, I got George Knapp went on a Dronapalooza kind of diatribe, and I just thought I'd try to get through that for everybody. It was pretty interesting, and everybody that knows George Knapp or has read George Knapp or heard George Knapp, guy doesn't pull any punches. So, in this article, he says, in Nevada and beyond, eyes are glued to the skies for mystery drones that have captured nationwide attention. For 3 weeks, waves of unknown objects said to be similar to drones have emerged at night over highly populated areas and restricted airspace. No one knows who's flying them and why it's happening, and conflicting information is rampant. Since late November, the barrage of drone flybys has been concentrated mainly on New Jersey, the most densely populated state in the U.S., and the origin of the alien invasion depicted in H.G. Wells' classic War of the Worlds. Differentiating between simple mere drones and something more mysterious is a task the U.S. government has been making difficult, blurring dividing lines in recent years. July 2019, more than 100 unknown objects buzzed and swarmed 10 U.S. Navy warships 100 miles off the Pacific coast. The objects were documented in multiple shapes and sizes on camera, radar, and thermal sensors, including huge wingless orbs with no detectable proportion. The Pentagon said these were just drones, no biggie. A few years earlier, the Navy pilots on the East Coast encountered unusual objects daily in their training ranges. The debunkers called them drones, balloons, or a combination of both. Certainly not UFOs. Recently, the military has used the general term drones to explain unknown objects, replacing swamp gas and weather balloons. In what might be the most iconic and of current sightings, intrusions by so-called drones shut down air traffic at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Wright-Patterson is where the wreckage of the 1947 Roswell incident was reportedly stored. Nice touch, drone people. We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or public safety threat, John Kirby, White House National Security Communications Advisor, said in December news conference. Several government officials have recently tried to quell public concerns, but the public isn't buying it. And the mystery drones didn't get the memo either. Social media platforms are jam-packed with cell phone videos of assorted lights, odd objects seen nightly in the skies over New Jersey and many other states, including Florida, Texas, California, and Oregon. Most are likely airplanes, lights, but some resemble standard drone, albeit a few the size of sport utility vehicles. They do not perform like known drones. New Jersey officials have demanded briefings and say they were told the drones are not a threat, are not being flown by U.S. government, and are not being flown by foreign adversaries. By the way, the government cannot track them and doesn't know where they originate or go each morning. President-elect Donald Trump is among those that doubt the narrative. Questions leading to the cynicism included the U.S. intelligence cannot track the objects. 2 decades ago, when the U.S. Navy pilots encountered the so-called Tic Tac object off the Pacific coast, it was revealed that the Navy possessed sensors capable of tracking the golf balls for 100 miles. The public was told that there was no verified drone intrusion into restricted airspace over military bases before a statement released on the 14th by multiple agencies, including the FBI. 2 reports of mysterious drones entering the Nevada National Security Site, formerly the Nevada Test Site, are part of the ongoing tsunami of drone sightings. So what gives?
I don't know what gives anymore, my man. I can't answer that anymore. I don't know.
Me either.
I don't know.
I love George.
No, but I have no clue. Right?
Yep, definitely.
Like, gee whiskers. Thank you, bud, for a great UFO report. Always appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week. Coming up next, it's the Dave 101, and it's all about fear and the weird news of the week.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
Hello, Chris. Teen, how are you? Mm-hmm.
Right on, right on. All right. So I will probably, yeah, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or whenever you want. And then, yeah, we'll
This weekend for sure.
Yeah, no, I kind of figured
this
that.
weekend for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I want to start writing it out.
Okay.
I got to build a diary on this, so
Storyboard it.
storyboard it. Doubleday, how are you? Yeah, so
Okay.
the weekend of May 18th is when we're Merle's going to come up here. We're
Mhm.
going to shoot the just him and I on a one-on-one up there.
Sure, absolutely.
Hi, gorgeous Aussie Ange. How's tomorrow looking? Am I alive tomorrow? Please let me know. And so you and I will start the week after.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So, yeah, we'll have a talk about it and kind of go from there.
Sounds good, buddy. All right. I will leave you to your Dave 101. Get off my frickin' lawn.
Get off my
Everybody,
freaking lawn, you piece of trash.
everybody have a good night and have a great weekend. And we will see you next week. Talk to you later, Dave. Good night, buddy.
See you, bud. Yes, I'm alive tomorrow. Yes, thank you, Aussie Ange. You know what's going to be pretty crappy is the one day that they say, no, I'm not alive tomorrow. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? It's going to happen one day. Reminder to all of you that if you want to join Merle and I in Vegas, May 1st to 4th, fly home on the 5th. We will be there at the Orleans. Lee's coming. Jackie's coming. Sweet Robbie G is coming. One Shin is coming. Kira is coming. Whoever else wants to come can come. That's where we're going to be. It's not a fan party. It's just hanging out. So if you want to come hang out with us, that's where we'll be. Everyone's invited. Mm-hmm. Everyone's invited. So mark it on your calendar and join us. Hanging out like a nail on the wall. That's right. Linda, bring a cigar for us. We'd appreciate that. So, new listener Jennifer Andrews in our chat room. We're going to be in your hometown. You can come join us. Oh, Tim Mothman in your goatee, you better be there. You're not missing out. You know you're not missing out. We got like 52 seconds. Hi, Nikki in Seattle. We're just staying there, man. Don't have to play cards there. Oh, little Timmy James will be there too. Thank you to Deb, Philip, Joe, Mel, Richard, and Jen for the super chats. Here we go in like 7 seconds. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Glad you made it this far. Let's do another 30 minutes and we'll have some fun just like the last 2.5. My name is Dave Scott. I appreciate being your radio host of the night. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It's that time of the week, that time of the night, where I yell at everybody to get off my lawn. It's the Dave 101.
Open up the door, it's Dave! Who? Dave, D-A-V-E! What is this?
Dave's not here. It's the Dave 101.
I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
He's the killer! Yeah! He's the killer!
It's a mess.
Tonight we're going to talk about fear because we see a lot of fear going on right now around the world, in our world of the UFOs, the paranormal and supernatural. You're caught up in it. I'm caught up in it. So what really is going on? Look, I'm not going to beat you down with more drone stuff. I'm more bored of that than pretty much anything else in my life, and I know you are too. There's a game being played there, and we don't know what it is. Is it a false flag that's coming? Is it aliens? Is it the U.S. government? Is it another Tom Clancy type of Jack Ryan novel where they're looking for nuclear waste or technology or weaponry that has been disabled for years? Whatever the story is on the drones, the one thing that is really, really noticeable through all this is the storytelling. The storytelling of it's an adversary, it's possibly an adversary, it's not an adversary. There's nothing to worry about, people, nothing to see here, pulling a Chief Wiggum from The Simpsons. Don't put your drones in the air and those damn kids going to Walmart and buying the drones that are on the shelves. They are responsible for all this. It's swamp gas. Don't shoot at the drones or point laser pointers at them, because really you're actually doing it to helicopters. It really goes to show, though, how this has turned into a real clickbait moment. Never mind the drones for a minute. Okay, but this has turned into a real clickbait moment. I've seen so many photos and so many videos online of people clickbaiting a drone, potential UFO, and it's a helicopter, or it's an airplane, or it's an airliner. Have we really been spending that much time looking down at our phone that we cannot even recognize an airplane or a helicopter anymore? No. The answer is no, we haven't been. And here's the reason why. We don't look up anymore because there's nothing to see there. We look down to get our information. We look down at our phones to do our research, to check out social media. And the worst part about the whole social media flap is clickbait. Clickbait where people are trying to get likes, they're trying to get subscribers. They're trying to go viral because they want to see one of their videos getting 1 million plus views. Well, that's what's happening right now. And the problem is the government is eating that up. The military is eating that up because we are our own distraction. If we count the excuses on our hands regarding the drones, it's terrible. It really is. If this is a government operation, just come out and say, hey, we're doing some testing with some drones here, military drones. Don't worry, this is going to go on for a couple of weeks, and then we're going to disappear. The question is, what if they're not drones? What if they are UFOs? And some of them may be. Why? Because weird stuff like this always seems to attract UFOs. We don't need to seem to know when or why or how, but not many of them are. But I'm not saying that we should rule that out either. The one thing that we have done is create fear. When you do not give a proper answer, like what the American public has heard through this whole drone flap, this is what happens. Vigilante justice. People start shooting at them. People start shooting laser pointers at them, fireworks at them, whatever it may be. If you can launch it in the sky, you do it. All to try and bring that down. There's no point to this public hysteria that we are seeing growing with these drones. It's fear-mongering. But once again, one thing we do know is fear-mongering brings budgets. Now, I'm not a fan of this. I don't like it. I think it's causing a lot of debates. Same type of debate as people say, oh, you voted for that person? Well, I'm going to shave my head and cut you off of your sex life because that's what I do in retaliation. It's the same stupidity as that. It really is. Not to get political. But this is my rant and I can say what I want. No, what we are seeing here is the height of the military-industrial complex. If there is a real threat, I can understand the cover-up. But don't keep covering things up with stupidity, like the kids from Walmart buying up all the drones, the YouTubers looking for the clickbait video, the copycatting, as we just talked with Tim about copycatting the drones. Don't do that. You're better than that. But the power of clickbait and the power of subscribers and going viral, it's the new drug. And that's what we are seeing. It's the new drug of choice for a young generation who is living their lives through social media. That 35 and lower crowd, that's what they want. Clickbait importance. Look at Haktua Girl, who's about to be sued for millions over a meme coin because the power of influence went to her head and to the people that she invested her money with. These are people who don't know what it's like to save your money when you win the lottery. But back to the drones, this could have been easily solved, even if there is nuclear weapons missing, which is being reported on. All you have to do to cover it up is say, we're just conducting an easy military operation with drones, testing our radar systems to make sure that there is no threat from any adversary trying to sneak in a drone into one of our military facilities. You know who would have bought that story? Everyone. Everyone. Whoever the PR person is for the military branches on this, if I was their boss, I would say, step into my office, you're fired. And the politicians as well, with the stupidity that they're coming up with with fireworks, swamp gas, Venus, SpaceX, whatever it may be. We are not that dumb anymore. We are not that gullible. But there's another side of fear I want to talk about now that I got that off my chest. And that is the fear of the phenomenon. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I had a very long conversation with Merle earlier today about my project for Flight 21, where I'm going to be studying that starting in May. And I'll be honest with you, without clickbait comments, I'm scared. I'm actually really scared. I don't know if I should do it. I'm afraid of that place. It's traumatic there. It's not big. It's probably, 60 yards by 60 yards. You could grow that a little bit bigger, maybe the size of a football field. But there's fear there when you're putting yourself in a situation that you have no control over. And when you're dealing with the unknown, that's where it gets even more creepy. Look, I know what the known are in that area. The known are wild animals, wolf packs, grizzly bears, black bears, giant moose. And yes, a moose can hurt a person really, really bad. But it's the unknown of what we've experienced in the past there, from ghosts to cryptids like Bigfoot, UFOs, and aliens, and the unpredictability of that area that has me questioning this entire logic that I have that I got to go back. I don't know if you've ever been haunted by something before. I'm not talking a ghost, but a location. It's weird. It's weird when it gives you pictures in your brain of where you're sitting and just staring there and listening and nothing's happening. It's kind of like the feeling of the movie Jaws, where you don't see the shark, named Bruce, by the way. You don't see the shark, but you hear the music. Dun-dun, 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 dun-dun. That's what it's like. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the phenomena has in mind, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to ride it out. I'm going to face my fear and do this. Fear is a powerful thing. You think we'd outgrow it, but we don't. I'm going to be 52 years old next year, and this place is probably the creepiest place I've ever been. And yet it looks so innocent. With the old growth forest all around. We're talking 100-foot trees. The fact that the birds never seem to chirp or caw, even when they're flying over. Sure, you can hear the birds off in the distance, but you never hear it over top of you. Where you'll be sitting there doing nothing, and all of a sudden you'll hear the nature's siren, which is a chipmunk or a squirrel, start going off in a tree, warning you that something is around. Yeah. When you're going to get that sighting, when it's going to happen, you don't know. And I can literally, even having this conversation with you, feel the anxiety building up in my chest and my stomach, knowing that that's going to happen and those are things I'm going to experience. Fear is real. Now, I have never been put in a situation where I'm staring at the wrong end of a pointy stick that somebody has pointed at me. I've never had that. I've never had a life or death situation. I've never been in an accident where people have passed away or anything like that. I've been pretty fortunate so far in dodging that. But this place, it's fearful. I would sit in a drone swarm of New Jersey over going to this place. Yet I'm going to do it. Tackle that fear. And I have no idea what the phenomena has planned. Because the one thing that I've learned over time is the phenomena is unpredictable. The first thing you know about the phenomena, or the first thing you learn, is you don't know what to expect. It could be a nightmare. It could be blissful. It could lead to some amazing contact, or it could lead to Bigfoot ripping my arm off and beating me to death with it. That would be kind of cool, actually. Not many people get to say they died by the hands of Bigfoot. I'd like to see how St. Peter would react to the pearly gates with that one. Battle your fears. Battle what it's all about. That's your Dave 101.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News.
Loud noises!
I am good at things, fighting and reading the news.
It's time once again for Spaced Out Radio's Weird News of the Week.
All right, we're going to start off with a flat earther here. A popular YouTuber and flat earther traveled all the way to Antarctica to put his theories to the test, only to realize at the end, Earth is not flat. It's round. Yep, many pseudoscience and conspiracy theories have come and gone over the years, but none have quite had the staying power of flat Earth. Human understanding that our home planet is very much a round plate, all the way back to ancient Greek philosophers. However, the overwhelming evidence is nonstop showing that we're on a ball. Yep, but nobody's really been able to convince a flat earther that some of their views may not be entirely accurate. So, this is what happened. A bunch of YouTubers traveled down to Antarctica with the goal of observing a 24-hour sun on the continent. The presence of a 24-hour sun would definitely prove the world is round, as the phenomena would simply not exist on a flat Earth. The results are in now, proving, spoiler alert, the planet has always been round and always will be a 3D ball. Most of us already knew this, but that wasn't the point of the experiment. Yep. Duran Campanella reluctantly admitted that he was wrong on camera. Campanella, who is known for his channel Jeranism, has been outspoken about his voice on Flat Earth Scene and agreed to go on the expense trip to settle the debate. Appearing on a live stream, Campanella told the camera, "All right, guys, sometimes you are wrong in your life. The Earth is round." He goes on to say, "I thought there was no 24-hour sun. In fact, I was pretty sure of it, but I respect Will Duffy, the Glober, who paid for this trip, for being a stand-up guy, at least in the way that he kept saying it was true. I kept saying it wasn't. So that's about it. I realize that I'll still be called a shill, an ex-flat earther who tries to convince others the world is round, for just saying that. And you know what? If you're a shill for being honest, so be it. I honestly believe there was no 24-hour sun. I honestly now believe there is. That's it. The debate is settled." Good for him for coming back to Earth. Boy, that was a good pun I just threw in there. You know, this is the ultimate bad luck. A man has died after going hunting, chasing a bear into the tree, shooting it, then having said bear, who is now deceased, fall out of the tree and landing on him. Yes, a father of 5 from Virginia suffered the unimaginable death when a hunting trip went badly wrong in what sounds like a punchline to a bad joke, but it actually happened. Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources shared the results. I don't mean to laugh. This is horrible. Okay, of an investigation in the wake of the man's death. The report suggests the man's shocking death happened when he was part of a group of hunters who had chased a bear into the tree. 58-year-old Lester C. Harvey Jr. went under the tree for some unknown reason. Said bear used gravity after its death and fell out of the tree, but decided to land on dear Lester. Yes, Harvey was reportedly standing some 10 feet from the bottom of the tree. Despite having retreated away from the tree to what he clearly thought was a safe distance, no, it was a death sentence and a death distance. It wasn't to be, as the bear landed on top of him after being shot. In the wake of the bear falling on him, one of Harvey Jr.'s fellow hunters attempted to provide first aid until local emergency services arrived. However, he didn't make it. Didn't make it at all. That's weird. Finally, tonight, 2 men are dead after fertilizing cannabis plants with bat poop. You can't make this stuff up. Yeah, it's a strange story. 2 men sadly died after contracting a type of pneumonia from using unusual type of fertilizer, bat poop. The unnamed men became gravely ill after coming into contact with the bat droppings, also known as guano, and it proved to be fatal. They were diagnosed with histoplasma fungus. Ooh, that doesn't sound fun. Yeah, one of the victims was 59 years old, developing a breathing condition called emphysema. He also presented arthritis and was admitted to hospital suffering from respiratory failure. The patient reported that he had been losing weight for 6 weeks in the run-up to it and also had difficulty swallowing. The man revealed he bought bat guano from an online store in the weeks to try the new pot, except didn't get him high, got him 6 feet under. Here's Mr. Ron Bubblefoot Ball rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAF, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. The seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. The real answer to that last story is don't smoke bat shit. Okay? Don't smoke bat shit. It's going to kill you. It's going to kill you. No. Don't smoke the bat shit. Bear with me. Just downloading it right now. Who would think that smoking bat shit's a good idea? My goodness. I don't get that. Mama Catherine, how you doing? Mama Catherine will be in Vegas. I'm taking that young lady out for dinner, too. Mm-hmm. Mama Catherine and I are going to go pound some tacos at Taco Bell. Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing. I know you're in pain, Mama. I know you are. Excuse me. That should be the first one right there. What's the plan for Vegas? We're just going to hang out. Literally, that's the plan. Probably on the Friday or Saturday, rent a vehicle to go out to Area 51. That's being blunt. Darn it. I did it again. Undo. There we go. Tim Mothman and his goatee are going to be there. The goatee promises this year it will be signing autographs all weekend. It's an amazing sight. You should actually see it. Thank you, Ethanol. Have a good night. By the way, just want to give a congratulations to a good friend of this show, Jimmy Church today. I know celebrated his 11th year on the air with Fade to Black. That's a great milestone. I think it's fantastic. Happy birthday to Jules. Happy birthday to Jules. Happy birthday, luscious Jules. Happy birthday to Jules. There we go. I don't know. I haven't talked. I only texted Jimmy today just to tell him congrats. Oh, that would be kind of cool, Linda. I love drives like that. Deborah Rooney, are you coming to Vegas? Remember, whoever joins us in Vegas gets a free tug on Tim Mothman's goatee. A free tug. Not a hard tug. Not like you're, ringing the horn of a steamship or anything like that. But a good solid tug. Vanessa, everyone's invited. I never said you were uninvited. Let's not cause any drama. Whoever comes, comes. Whoever doesn't, doesn't. Fap, the only way we're going to scare people away from Vegas is if you show up. With your Jesus sandals and your uncut toenails that are that fungus green color. Yeah, and Fap's got those fungus green toenails. He paints them Dodger blue in order to try and make them look better. All right, got that. Give me 2 seconds. Reported for what, Baywatcher? Mm-hmm. Remember that scene in Dumb and Dumber where the lady has to take the grinder to Jim Carrey's or Lloyd Christmas's toenails. That's what FAP has to do once every 6 months. FAP ain't coming to Vegas. Ozzy Andrew's going to try and make it. All right, people, it's that time of the night where I have to say goodnight to all of you. Tomorrow night on the show, Ronnie Vermette is going to join us, UFOs over South America. It's going to be a good show. And big thank you tonight to Cosmic Joe, Philip, Mel WD40, Richard, Jen, and Deborah Rooney for the great super chats. Much appreciate the love. We'll see you tomorrow night. Don't forget, if you're new here, hit subscribe, ring that bell, and remember, our chat room's awesome. See you later.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.